your sports network.
Yeah, I've been closer to Jesus before, so can you help me out? Oh, can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? Or can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? Or can you help me out? Can you help me out? I've been scared to look at my soul. I've been afraid I would follow alone. Yeah, afraid of the things I've been told.
Welcome into a Monday edition of Running Point, and look who's back home from Kansas City. Ron Potesta with you alongside Mr. Hardwig, who is bearing gifts today.
I'm back from the middle of the map in Kansas City. And,
How was your vacation?
It was really good, especially because Mahomes signed his contract while I was in Kansas City, and seeing the reaction that city had, being in the city for that, it was something else. That city was buzzing all week because Mahomes signed a contract, and people didn't expect him to sign this offseason because he still had 2 years left on his rookie deal. People thought that he was going to wait till that expired to sign it.
I don't know. If I'm getting $50 million a year to play football, sign me up.
Right? But that doesn't kick in for 2 seasons because he's still got to finish his rookie deal. So he's going to go into next season still being paid as much as, I think, Teddy Bridgewater when it comes down to quarterbacks getting paid. So
How much of that is guaranteed?
I don't remember.
Yeah.
A lot.
Because
it's high.
Again,
I know he has like a $140 million injury guarantee in there.
Yeah.
No trade clause, of course.
My whole thing with the NFLPA, how they don't have guaranteed contracts, is beyond me. That should have been the number one thing. If the owners want to sit back and say, hey, we want to play 17 games, if I'm the NFLPA, I'm like, okay, we'll play 17, 18 games. You just give us guaranteed money, because we're not going to do this. Sign a 5-year deal for $50 million, but 20 of it's guaranteed, and you can cut me anytime you want to, and the money doesn't go against your salary cap. No. You're now going to have every penny of this contract fully guaranteed, and it should, because it's, other than hockey, the most violent sport, and if anyone deserves to have everything, it would be the football and the hockey player.
Well, I do think he does have guaranteed money, and it is pretty high.
Oh, it's a lot of money. And toward the end of that contract, they're going to wish that they never did that.
Right.
But, hey, you sign your franchise
10-year
quarterback.
contracts is alien to football.
Oh, absolutely.
No one signs 10-year contracts in football.
I mean, he's already been in the football for 3 years now.
Yeah,
so
2
he's
years
going to be
as a starter.
Yeah, so he's going to be a 14-year veteran when this is finished.
Up, yep.
He's going to be in his mid-late 30s when this contract is finished up, assuming that he stays healthy.
And what I think that does, 10 years, is that tells people that are looking to come to Kansas City maybe in 5 or 6 years, that quarterback is invested in that franchise. He's not going to leave in 3. He doesn't have a 3-year contract, and then it's uncertainty after that. He's there for another 6 years. So that might get people a little bit more intrigued to come to Kansas City.
Oh, absolutely.
Because they have stability at the quarterback position.
Now, they're not going to make a whole lot of money because, a fourth of it, even larger than a fourth of it, is going to go to your starting quarterback. But on the flip side, if you get enough talent around this guy, obviously they've won a Super Bowl with him at quarterback, and I'm sure that they're going to be favored over the next 10 years. I'm sure they're going to be an instant contender over the next 10 years. Now, there's no guarantee. Ask Dan Marino how many Super Bowls he's won, or Jim Kelly. both of which are in Canton right now. So there's no guarantee in all of this.
You look at the Chiefs, and the people they pay the most right now are their offensive linemen. Their
And they
offensive
should.
linemen are up towards the top of their payroll. Their skill position guys are down towards the bottom. I mean, Tyreek Hill doesn't get paid a lot. They just signed him last offseason. They got him on a deal because of that scandal he went through.
Sure.
So that was kind of a lucky thing for the Chiefs because the scandal ended up being unfounded. So they didn't have to have the disciplinary actions that would have happened, but they also got him at a lower deal than they probably could have if that didn't happen. So that was something that fell in the Chiefs' lap. You got McCole Hardman, who's a rookie that's a carbon copy of Tyreek Hill. Travis Kelce's the only guy that's a skill position player that's really getting paid a good sum of money right now.
Sammy Watkins was paid
took a pay cut.
a good amount of money, but he took a pay cut, and he's pretty smart about all of this because
He
he
made
knows.
himself look real pretty because he came out and said, I want to be in Kansas City. Why wouldn't I want to be?
Absolutely.
But he also kind of looked at him and said, I'm not going to get paid this amount of money. They're either
No.
going to cut me and there's no one that's going to pay me this amount of money.
Exactly.
So he made the smart career move too. But then he was able to turn around and make himself look really pretty to the Kansas City people.
He's not stupid.
Yeah,
no,
he's
Sammy knows what he's doing for sure. So no, it was great news. If you're a Chiefs fan, the stability is there, and I've said for years, if you have your $1 million quarterback, you better not have a 10-cent offensive line.
Right.
And the Chiefs, one of the reasons why they're going to be a contender year after year after year is because they actually have bodies. Really good players up front that's going to protect their $1 million asset, or in this case, millions of dollars asset.
They went and they got him a defense too. It's not the best defense in the league, but
No.
it's adequate.
It's good enough to
They-
where
They improved all their numbers from 18 to 19.
Yeah.
I think they, especially the secondary, their numbers all went up. They got big name players. The pass rush is still there. That was always what the Chiefs were known for, is their pass rush. And even though they lost Justin Houston, they brought in Frank Clark. So pass rush is still there. Their defense is formidable. They proved that in the playoffs. And if you give them an adequate defense, you're going to win a lot of games.
yeah, if they're giving up like 22, 23 points a game, which in today's NFL, that's really not that bad. Now in the postseason, you want to go under 20. But, again, with that offense, unless you're playing in a really, really good defense like New England, Buffalo, Baltimore, you're not going to beat Kansas City.
I look at it now, like as it is right now, I don't know how you stop it. Everyone's a matchup problem. You're going to have to one-on-one somebody.
Yeah.
It's not impossible to stop, but it's really hard to just stop.
I will really look forward to the game in Orchard Park if there is football, and I knock on wood and pray that there is. I will really look forward to the game in Orchard Park because the Bills' secondary is good enough to not shut anyone down, but in this case, they're good enough to slow Kansas City down just enough.
Do you think they have the players to match up with Sammy Watkins, McCole Hardman, Travis Kelce, and Tyreek Hill?
Yes.
All right.
That secondary is legit.
And then, Damian Williams coming out of the backfield.
No, and listen, that secondary is legit. The linebackers are young, and I hope and pray Ed Oliver has a springboard second season, which, by all accounts, he has gotten himself into even better shape than he was last year, which is frightening. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. But again, knock on wood, the NFL has a season because I would love to see this matchup between Kansas City and Buffalo in Orchard Park. And dare I say, and I'm going to say this, dare I say it, hope and pray from my lips to God's ears, this is a AFC championship preview. We'll see.
Well,
Kansas City will be there. I don't know if Buffalo will.
I'm not counting out. I mean, the AFC is about to get really good. I mean, it could be about to get really good with these quarterbacks that they just brought in. Because the last 5-6 years, quarterbacks in the AFC have been the lesser conference.
Yep.
Now, Joe Burrow's coming to the AFC. Tua's coming into the AFC. Herbert's coming into the AFC. If all three of those guys excel, and that's a big if because they're rookies, but if all three of those guys do well, all of a sudden you have three more quarterbacks vying for success in the AFC. Things are going to get a lot harder for Patrick Mahomes to always get to the Super Bowl.
And the other thing that
And Lamar Jackson's coming down the street, too.
Well, absolutely. And the other thing that keeps me up at night is Cam Newton in New England, because Cam Newton, if he's healthy, is going to be a freaking all-pro because he's going to be coached by the genius in Belichick. So it's just I can just see this now where Cam Newton is going to do an awful lot of that this year.
I don't like the sports world turning their nose up at Cam Newton because he's one of those guys that if you tell him he can't do something,
He's going to prove you wrong.
oh jeez.
He's going to prove you wrong.
A motivated Cam Newton is very dangerous. And I don't think he was motivated the last year in Carolina. But if he's motivated, he's dangerous.
If his shoulder is healthy, that is dare I say, because Tom Brady is one of the greatest of all time, that is actually an upgrade in New England if his shoulder is okay.
I don't know about that because I don't think his legs are going to be what they were when he was the MVP. So he's not going to be the dual threat that made him so.
Well, he's going to be better than Brady. I mean, he's not. He doesn't have concrete feet. I mean, he will be able to run. It's just I think that he'll throw the ball down the field, which is something that New England didn't do all that often, especially in the second half of the season. If he's healthy, he could be an upgrade, which, no disrespect to Brady, he's old. So
he's going to run into the same problems that Brady had last year as who do you trust as wide receivers?
There you go.
You have no weapon. I mean, I saw in the game against Kansas City, Tom Brady had a wide open rookie in the end zone to win the game, and he didn't throw it to him. He threw it into Edelman because he didn't trust his receivers. He didn't trust the rookies to catch the ball. He forced balls to the people he trusted, and that got him into trouble. So is Cam Newton going to come in and trust these guys to go make plays?
I don't think he's going to have a choice.
Right. I mean,
you got to do it. And plus, they have a pretty good running back.
They do.
And they have a nice offensive line. And they have a supreme defense.
They have two running backs that are legitimate.
And look, I'm a huge Bills fan, but I'm also a realist. Buffalo is going to have a very difficult time winning the East. They will, but it's going to be a lot harder than people think. New England's not going away anytime soon. This is a good football team. If, and it's a big if Cam Newton's shoulder is fine, that's a good football team. So we'll see what happens. But it was good to see that the announcement was made while you were in Kansas City. Did you go to the Negro League Museum?
I didn't because we didn't really go anywhere. I mean, Kansas City is a place that's kind of not shut down, but their COVID-19 parameters are very more strict than they are right here at this point. I mean, masks are completely mandatory everywhere you go. There aren't too many places that are like that are open. I mean, you can go to restaurants, you can go to your Walmarts, your malls, but it's very different because it's a metro area. It's different than what we see here.
Did you see a lot of people complaining or protesting the fact that they have to wear a mask? I mean, everywhere I went, people were following the rules. At least there weren't people that were like wearing the mask into the doors and then sliding it off. Really. Yeah.
But there's definitely that crowd because anytime you get a big group of people and you tell them to do something, there's going to be a group of people that don't want to do it.
Of course.
Especially when you're in a place like Missouri that's known for the kind of blue collar, don't tell me what to do kind of attitude. So there's definitely the factions of people that don't like the fact that their mayor, who is black, came out and made masks mandatory everywhere. Now,
here's the thing that I would think the Kansas City fan or the Kansas City resident, who by and large are Kansas City Chiefs fans, I got to believe that they're thinking to themselves, okay, I'm wearing this mask because, number one, I want to keep myself safe. I want to keep my family safe. But let's be honest, I'm wearing this mask because I want to see the Kansas City Chiefs repeat as Super Bowl champions and all this other stuff, whatever. Just give me my football. That's why I'm wearing a mask, and I'm going to be pissed beyond belief if I'm wearing this mask and we still have the NFL season canceled. If I were a Chiefs fan living in Kansas City, that would be my mentality.
Right. And the Chiefs came out, I think the day after they signed Patrick Mahomes, and they came out with their plan for right now what's going to be their season and the reduced capacity stadiums. And they came out and said, season ticket holders, you're not going to be season ticket holders this year because we're not going to give you tickets to every game automatically. You're going to have credit to 2021, and then you're going to have first dibs on the public single game tickets that we release for single games this year. if we let fans in the stands. That's what the plan is right now, at least in Kansas City at Arrowhead Stadium.
I got to believe that Kansas City, Cleveland, name the NFL team. Season ticket holders are going to be buying the public seats.
Yes.
If there are seats available for the fans. The regular fans who don't invest in season tickets are going to be left out in the cold. You're not getting tickets. It's going to be the season ticket holders that wind up getting these tickets.
But then it's going to be interesting because a lot of corporations just get season tickets and then kind of give out those tickets. What's going to happen to those tickets? Are these corporations going to buy those tickets that they usually do, like to the 50 seats capacity? Or are some of those tickets going to slip through the cracks and there's going to be a select amount of tickets available to the public? I mean,
Don't know.
I just don't know.
Here's the other thing. How many of those tickets are going to go into the black market and get sold for a ridiculous amount of money?
I'm sure a lot.
I mean, seriously, and I'm so anti the people, the corporations that have the scam, and that's what it is, where you have to, if you're doing business with them, you have to pay 4 and 5 times face value in order to get the ticket. That's a scam. It should be illegal. And if I were a member of Congress, the first thing I would do, forget about trying to keep my district safe. No. The first thing that I would do is write up a bill that says I want these a-holes out of business because what this is, it's a scam, and it should be the teams are now back in charge of selling their product instead of putting it to the black market where they can go arm, leg, your firstborn and whatnot.
Well, you got to remember, when you're a third-party ticket seller, it makes it easier on the teams.
Sure.
But then, I think they're gouging it a little bit, but
A little?
they're gouging it a lot.
Uh-huh.
But if you're Ticketmaster, you're selling tickets for the Kansas City Chiefs or whatever, you
Is,
gotta
or whatever
have that.
it is. Sure.
So
But
they're entitled to that. But I
you
don't think
shouldn't.
you need.
You shouldn't be allowed if the ticket is $75. Nobody should be allowed to sit back and go, oh, that $75 ticket is now $200. And, oh, by the way, you're also going to be paying a $10 service charge. Get the hell out of here with that. No, that should be illegal. Because if that's allowed, then why isn't a fan who has tickets, who's trying to be an entrepreneur, and wants to sell the tickets for slightly above face value, and they get hassled and ultimately arrested by the police? That's BS. I'm sorry. You can't have your cake and eat it too. I'm sorry. You can't do that. Yeah, that's always been a pet peeve of mine. If I were to ever be voted into Congress, which, number one, I'm not going to run for Congress, even though I thought about it. But if
I want to see your campaign ads.
Oh, my campaign ads would be awesome. They would be phenomenal. and the debate, listen here, MFer. Oh yeah. The debate would go off the rails immediately if someone says something smart to me or something. Listen here.
The TV bleep guy would be very busy.
Oh yeah. He would be busy in a big way. Yeah, absolutely. On today's show, there is talk from Central Ohio. Some of the coaches in Central Ohio clearly didn't listen to the Wednesday edition of Running Point. Had they listened to it last week, they would have known that the OHSAA has zero intentions of moving football to the springtime. Yet these people want to have football in the springtime. The OHSAA said, nope, not going to happen, unless, of course, Governor DeWine steps in and says, yeah, you guys are going to have to move football to the springtime because it ain't happening in the fall. Which leads us into a little discussion that we had a few minutes before we went on the air. Let's assume the worst for a second and say that Governor DeWine and the Lieutenant Governor Husted decide, with the OHSAA's blessing, that high school football is going to be canceled this year. Well, let's assume that for a second. The sports that are currently okay, golf, that's a men's and women's sport.
Volleyball.
Volleyball, that's a women's sport. And cross country. That's a men's and
Tennis.
women's sport.
I don't
I'm
think
sorry,
cross
not
country's been-
cross country. You are correct. Tennis.
Which
That
is
is a men's and women's
co-ed.
sport, boys and girls sport. Okay. Title IX.
It's always thought of as women's sports, but people got to remember it goes both ways.
It goes both ways.
Got to
and
have balance.
So you have two sports that are girl sports, and one sport
It is male.
that is a male sport.
You got to open something up.
So we were thinking, obviously, boys and girls golf, boys and girls cross country, boys and girls volleyball.
That's a possibility. It's definitely big in the club sense. There's a lot of Ohio men's volleyball clubs that have high school teams. It's not an OHSA sanctioned sport, but that's the way soccer was 15 years ago. Because
Now-
when my brother played soccer for South Range, it wasn't a OHSA sanctioned sport. It was a club team. They got to wear the colors, but they weren't like competing. So we could be seeing the rise of men's volleyball as an OHSA sport.
Now here's the sport that I would love to see, and we would broadcast it on YSN 8, the Ocho. That would be dodgeball. I think dodgeball would be absolutely epic in the state of Ohio, especially if there's no football. Could you imagine?
We need the violence.
Starting quarterbacks, especially those that can really throw a football with some velocity. Can you imagine them with a dodgeball and all the pent-up frustration because they're pissed off that they don't have football, and now they get to take it out on some schlub over on the other side? Dodgeball. I think it would be phenomenal in the state of Ohio.
Yeah, I can think of some local quarterbacks I wouldn't want to play dodgeball against, and
Well, yeah.
the wheels in my head are turning.
Oh,
Like,
there's a number of
I don't
kids.
think I'd want to play dodgeball against Springfield right now.
No.
With Brungard over there.
No,
throwing-
I wouldn't want to play against him. I wouldn't want to play against Harding's quarterback. No, there's some guys I definitely would not want to play dodgeball against. But I think under the circumstances, I mean, they could go the safe direction and say boys volleyball, which is not
Lacrosse
a
is
bad idea.
also an option, by the way.
Lacrosse is a fantastic sport. We've talked about that. I was introduced to it about 7 or 8 years ago when I actually longer than that. It was more like 11 years ago. I was in my last year in Altoona. We had a off day, and I was in Trenton, New Jersey on an off day, and my cousin's kids, who were still in high school back in that era. Actually, they were going into high school back in that era. Anyway, they were playing lacrosse, and that was my first look at lacrosse. Lacrosse is a fantastic sport. Now, I don't know if that's considered to be a fall sport or if it would be a spring sport. Do you move up baseball if there is no football? That's a possibility only because we have baseball right now. It's not like you would have to have a long,
and then you just
quote-unquote summer training camp.
you'd keep softball in the spring. But then if you don't bring back football in the spring, you run into the same problem where you have a boys sport in spring 2021 that you need to fill in for spring. Because if you take away baseball out of spring 2021 and put it in fall 2020, then what do you do to kind of counteract softball in the spring?
That's true. I mean, unless you now have
Unless you have
lacrosse for everyone
yes.
in 2021, which, okay, you're introducing a new sport. It's a boys and girls sport, which, again, you would have to go into the archives because Title IX, once again, the girls are one sport more, so you would have to even it out. Maybe that's a situation where boys volleyball goes into the spring.
If they're going to do boys volleyball, it'd be hard to kind of put that together in 1 month and say, hey, schools kind of put together a boys volleyball team. 'Cause, then you got to get a coach, you got to teach them the game, you got to, it's hard to just start up a sport.
No, it definitely is.
At least lacrosse, there are area teams that have lacrosse teams. So I feel like if you're going to replace sports right now, lacrosse would probably be the higher possibility in the area. But
Now the other thing is that a contact sport?
oh well, then yeah,
Because
it is.
obviously it has to be a contact sport. I mean, it's the combination of football,
It's way more contact
soccer,
than volleyball.
hockey. I mean, there was way more potential violence in that sport. I mean, you're slinging a very hard rubberized ball. There's some pretty stiff competition and a lot of potential, carnage in that sport. So I would think that it is contact, which, again, that goes right past football and soccer and all the other sports that are on the back burner. And again, I'm still amazed. Cross country is considered a contact sport until Tim Street explained.
You're running pretty close to each other.
There you go.
I
That's
mean,
the reason what he said. You've got 5-10 runners all in a pack herd.
and you're huffing and puffing and
Sure.
But I mean, if you're playing volleyball, you're right next to each other on the net, and you're not 6 feet apart with your teammates.
No, but apparently they don't consider that to be a contact
You're all touching
sport.
the ball.
Exactly. That's
You're diving on the floor, being all sweaty.
Yeah, that's where I was like,
Split.
wait a second, how do you not have this as a contact sport? You have to.
You're splitting hairs a little bit. I mean, you're not making contact with the other team. I think that's where they're coming from.
Yeah.
You don't contact the other team. You're not 6 feet apart from your teammates, but you're right next to them on the net. I mean, those blockers and the setters line up, right next to each other.
Sure.
So
And the other thing is, what do you do with the ball? I mean, do you
Right.
replace
Do
the
you
ball
use
every single serve?
we might see a college because college rotates balls.
Yeah.
High school doesn't. They just go chase the ball down. They'll use it and they'll serve it.
Yeah.
We might see a scenario where every time a point is made, they throw that ball out, towel it down, and then they throw another ball in.
Yeah.
That way they're always rotating the volleyball.
Yeah, you're gonna have to Febreze it.
Febreze it.
Yeah.
You might have to Lysol it.
Yeah, Febreze it and then
Febreze
rub
will
it
just
down.
make it
and-
smell nice.
Oh
I think
well,
you might
yeah.
have
I
to-
mean, hey,
you might have to get some Lysol in there.
hey, we're trying to get a new sponsor here. So I mean, I don't know if Lysol will
Running
do it.
Point brought to you by Febreze.
Well, they should. I mean, they should do that.
Smell fresh. Speaking of smell and good tasting,
Oh,
I got some toys from Kansas City.
now I gotta make a guess that the yellow top means hot sauce, or is the red hot sauce?
This is extra hot, red. And
Oh,
I
it's
can smell
extra
it.
hot.
Yeah.
Oh Lord,
Because it's mild and extra hot. You don't have a little hot in between.
there's no hot. It's extra hot.
Yeah.
Oh God.
And this is mild with the orange. They did have, I think between that they had like sweet and honey or something like that. But there you go.
I'm almost tempted to open
And
the
you
extra
can
hot.
smell them.
Just
Do you
to
smell it?
No.
Oh yeah, I can smell the
All
barbecue
right.
sauce.
There,
So.
here. Let me see the
Gates.
extra hot. Oh gosh.
Can you
This-
reach them?
Yeah, we're gonna have to
Welcome
jump
to
over
live.
here.
Welcome to live streaming. There you go. You got them. Ooh, yeah, that's
Oh,
strong.
good Lord, that's gonna clean the sinuses out. Yeah, no, this is gonna be dangerous. This is gonna be real dangerous because I know for certain. You would think. Oh, there we go. Come on. Oh gosh, I could already. Oh dear God! Seriously? Wow! All right. Mm-hmm. Yep. Oh yeah. It does not. Oh no, this is mine, so I can. Yeah.
I want
So.
to see you do a spoonful.
Oh hell no, no. Deej, you gotta hang on a second. Let me put a little on the cup and you put a pinky on this bad boy.
No, I'll do a spoon.
All right. Let me just preface this by saying, you do not feel it for a couple of seconds, about 10 or 15 seconds, and then wow, you oh my God, oh, that is going to be so good on ribs. Oh, holy bejeebers, is that good? Yeah, it's gonna affect it. Not yet? Wow. All right.
You're a little sissy.
No, not at all. I mean, I must have hit the
Yeah, that's it.
the pepper or something.
Did you try it?
No, I didn't try it.
It's not. That's the extra hot.
Yeah.
That's actually going to be really good on
very good.
on some ribs or chicken or something of that nature. Oh yeah, this is actually really good.
It's very good.
I don't know what the they get the nutrition facts on here too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretend like you pay attention to that.
Oh yeah, I'm trying to. Let's see, 15% sodium. Oh yeah, my high blood pressure is gonna love me for that. Yeah, no, this is good stuff.
Now, did that come from a certain store or that?
Yeah,
come from?
it's Kansas City. So they only sell it in Kansas City. But
So you can't
there's
order it
a
like
restaurant called. I mean, you can get it online.
Okay.
But you can't just go to the store and get Gates. There's the restaurant Gates Barbecue.
That's like the barbecue spot.
Yeah, I mean it's the franchise down there. I've always been told that the best barbecue from Kansas City comes from the ones that you don't know about. You know, those little mom and pop barbecues that are on the corner of, side streets. But that's the one that everyone knows Kansas City for.
I gotta say, Memphis, which by the way has some really good barbecue too. Corky's in Memphis. They used to sell it down at Kroger's, when I lived in Jackson. I thought that was really good, and it still is. This is better than Corky's. Yeah, that's some good stuff.
It's hard to compare. I mean, I've been out of Memphis. It's hard to compare barbecue sauce because it's so different. Like Memphis has the really thin, like watered down barbecue
Yeah.
sauce, which I didn't think I'd like, but I really did.
No, that's good stuff.
But this is Kansas City's like the thicker sauce, right?
Yeah,
This is more brown sugar in it.
Well, yeah, that's typically what you get with sweeter.
it's usually, the Kansas City's a little that's sweeter than most barbecue
What's
sauces.
the one, Sweet Baby Ray's that you
Yep.
can get like anywhere?
Yeah.
Is that Kansas City or what is that?
I know Casey Masterpiece is from
Naturally.
Kansas City, but I don't know where Sweet Baby Ray's is established.
Because that's the one. That's my go-to for my wife. Like she loves Sweet Baby Ray's, so we have a ton of it in the house. And like I like that stuff. I like having the different flavors, like wings. Like you don't
Yep.
want just one flavor. You want like
No, absolutely
5
not.
flavors of
Yeah,
wings.
there's a place just on 224, just before you get into PA, Morgan's Oil,
Oh yeah.
and they have unbelievably good chicken. And you can get it plain or whatever. Oh no, I'm going to get it plain, and I'm going to slather the crap out of Gates Extra Hot Sauce on the chicken.
You got
yeah.
a bootlegger now. He's
I got a
bootlegging wings.
Yeah, I gotta look for an address. Oh yeah, there it is. I'm gonna be ordering some of that stuff up. Woo, man, is that good?
His eyes are watering.
Wow, that's some good
It
stuff.
wasn't that hot. I was really nervous, and now it wasn't that hot.
No, I must have hit a pepper or something. So no, this is good. It's not too hot, but it's got some zip to it. So that's good.
Now, what kind of wings do you eat when you go, or whatever?
Yeah,
Barbecue.
we get pulled pork.
That what you do?
Yeah,
Pulled pork.
I like to push pork myself, but that's the joke because pulled pork. Yeah. But that's my cheesy joke of the day.
There you go.
Brought to you by Muppet Babies.
By the way, we do
and
have
brisket.
Brisket.
brisket's good. Yeah, brisket's good. We do have a couple of places. I like their barbecue sauce. Charlie Staples has some good.
Made with a whole cup of love.
Oh yeah, he has some good barbecue sauce. It's Sorry, Charlie, but it ain't as good as this. But it's
There
up
goes
there.
that sponsorship.
No. I mean, I'm not being truthful. I mean, Charlie's got a great place.
It's hard. I mean, listen, we're known for pizza.
Exactly.
Right.
We're not. If we were known for barbecue, it would be a much different area.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
But I like being known for pizza. Don't get me wrong, but like when you walk into a barbecue joint, you know you're in a barbecue joint. Like you can smell it from 3 miles away.
Yep. Yeah. When the YSU basketball team, the men's basketball team, went down to Alabama, and I was still doing sports rap, Schmitty knew that I lived in the South, and he said, do you have a suggestion? I said, where are you guys going to be in Alabama? And they told me, and I said, oh, Dreamland Barbecue. You'll thank me later. That's just go.
Yeah.
Just go, and you'll have a great
Just
time.
go.
Trust me, you'll have a great time. They did.
So the thing that most people don't realize is, and I don't know, are you a coleslaw guy at all? Okay, so when you go to a barbecue spot, the best thing about barbecue spots is the coleslaw they choose. So
Oh, yeah.
There's all these different types of coleslaw. I'm a huge coleslaw guy. Love it. Like, so whenever coleslaw is an option, I always go for it. Memphis was a killer spot for their coleslaw because they're barbecue. Because that's what you get, barbecue and coleslaw. That's just how it works. What's your side when you get pulled pork or push pork? Or
I'm old school. I like the fries. Fries with barbecue. Dip them in the barbecue sauce.
I don't know.
The mac and cheese down south
Mac
is a
and
lot
cheese
better.
is pretty good.
That's
Yeah,
a good call, Ronnie.
it's a lot better than it
It's
is
not.
up
It's
here.
not our mac and cheese. Our
Yeah.
mac and cheese here from a box. You know what I mean? With
Yeah.
with Kraft on it.
Which isn't a bad thing.
It's not.
It's not a
We
bad
have some
thing.
over there, but
Yeah.
it's not like. I'm trying to think of the place. It's like breaded on top,
Yep.
and it's my goodness.
Yeah.
My mouth's starting to water just thinking about that.
Yeah, and you have to have cornbread down there because
Fantastic.
that's
And well, you don't call it sweet tea down there. You just call it tea, right?
yeah. It's just assumed that you're going to have all kinds of sugar in it.
That's it.
Yeah. So and the only way you don't is if you specifically tell someone, I don't want sweetened tea.
You want diet tea.
I want diet tea. And that's they'll give you unsweetened
You either
unsweetened tea.
there's
You
just
go to
that-
Tennessee and you ask them, they say, I want a Coke, and they say, what kind? Because
Yeah.
Coke is a replacement for pop down there.
or soda, as some people call it here. Which
Soda pop.
no thanks. We're pop.
Wait a second.
Oh, yeah.
No.
What?
Oh,
no.
yeah.
No, it's soda.
No. If you say that, you're not from Latonia. They
Well,
don't say
I
He's been
have
influenced.
lived in other places, so it's soda.
No,
it
it's pop.
absolutely is.
no. It's pop.
No. It's pop is a reference to your father. I ain't drinking my dad. That's not happening.
That's up to you. But pop is still a reference. Pop is what we have in the fridge. Pop is what you have at a restaurant.
Because when you open it, it pops. I imagine
So does
that's
beer. Just saying.
That's why they call beer bubbly.
I don't know.
They call beer bubbly.
Give me some bubbly.
I think you're drinking
Wait
the
a
wrong
second.
beer.
I think that's champagne. This is not beer.
Okay, well, I'm not an alcohol drinker, so.
Well,
You should probably know that. That's like a thing.
I'd like
What?
some
My-
bubbly light, please. Bubbly
If
light.
there's a big difference between if you
I
win
know,
the
my
pennant
father
and somebody
goes into
dumps a
the-
Coors Light in your
My
face.
father always goes in the freezer and he says, I'm going to grab some bubbly. You want any? And so he calls his beer bubbly. I don't know.
Is he drinking the
he
champagne
drinks
of
Bud
beers?
Light.
What is that? Miller
Yeah, Miller.
Miller High Life.
Yeah, Miller High Life is the champagne of beers.
I can go with that. I can get behind that. But if he's doing Bud Light, I think your dad and I need to have a conversation.
Okay.
Well, there goes another sponsor.
That's all right. I just don't that's weird. That's a little bit weird.
We
I
all
don't think
have
I'd
our
ever call it
weirdness.
bubbly.
No.
Now bubbly is an actual
Bubbly's-
soda or a
Bubbly's champagne.
It's not bubbly.
and
It's,
now it's a water. Bubbly
Right.
is a water.
it's not bubbly.
Interesting. I don't know. That's weird.
Welcome to
Sorry,
our
dude.
culinary section of Running Point.
No, this
We always get there.
this is a really good barbecue sauce.
Well, food and sports go together. So
Absolutely
there's
they
no
do.
objection. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
that's just how it goes.
That's why we always get there. At some point, we'll get
Well,
to food.
you also have a show with Ron, so you're
Right.
naturally going
Well,
to get to
you're
food somewhere
naturally
in the
going
show.
to get there at some point in time. And by the way, when baseball does start in 10 days. Well, it's 11 days for Indians and Pirates fans. Yeah, we'll start talking ballpark food.
Orioles
That nobody's
Indians
gonna
game
get.
one.
What's that?
That nobody's gonna get.
That
this
nobody's
year.
going to get, but I mean, your favorite ballpark food. It is National French Fry Day today.
Well, yesterday. What was it yesterday? Red called it out, and I was like, "What?" I forget. He does a good job of doing national whatever. Day.
Yeah. He's got an encyclopedia book of irreverent stuff.
You two are two peas in a pod. It's
He would be really good on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, because you ask questions that are just way off the wall. Read someone that would answer those questions without any problems.
We got to get him down here.
Oh
I
God,
think
yeah.
he'd be a great guest to sit right here and talk.
He
to you.
is. Now that I think about it, 25 years of baseball at Scene Park. He's the only person that has seen, from his perspective,
He's
he's the only guy that's
he's
ever
the
done
oldest
what he's
active
doing.
employee.
Yeah.
is how he refers to it himself. When I asked him about that, but I think there's somebody else that's been there 25 years, just not in that capacity.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's one thing we need to start celebrating is the 25. I mean, before it's too late. Like another 2 weeks and the season's over,
Well, I know.
which is crazy.
Is the 18U regular season done with, or
I think we
did
have-
the rainouts kind of move everything to tonight?
No, the rainouts don't move anything to tonight because tonight's already a scheduled.
Okay,
I think next week is the rainout dates.
gotcha.
So we'll have to get with Scott and Kate on that. But what a weird weekend it was. They axed the first 3 games on Saturday and then played the last 2. So now you have teams that have more games played than others. It's a mess. God bless the people that do the schedules because I would not want to. There's no chance. But tonight, Richie and Tommy will have the call on field 1 for 5:30. No wait, 6 and 8:30. Andrew will have it on field 3. So 2's the only one we're missing tonight. And then of course you got tomorrow and Thursday. I'll take Wednesday and Friday, and then we figure out next week.
Playoffs.
Then we go
Playoffs.
playoffs.
Top 6.
Next week would be the rainout days, right?
Next week is the rainout.
Then
days,
they figure out the playoffs.
So yeah, well they'll pretty much know going
Okay.
into next week.
Do you
what
think
the-
there will be anyone next week that will those rainout days will decide a seating or decide a
Well,
spot?
right now, was it Nightline lost last night to 16U's? So you have Nightline and Dura Edge that are fighting for a bye, which is huge when you're talking about the short amount of time in pitching.
Yeah, because you don't want to go up against the Astro Falcons until the finals.
So you have to,
Yeah,
right? And
exactly.
really, it's because you have to pitch either your 1 or your 2
Yep.
at some point,
Yep.
and to get there, and you want to save all the pitching you can. That's why offense is so important when you get there, because if you can rely on someone out of your bullpen to get you a win and eat some innings in the playoffs, and especially in a short playoff, it's going to be interesting. And the Astro Falcons have lost to Nightline. They've played Dura Edge, and I think they beat them twice. So you got a split on the season with Nightline, and they threw their 1 and 2 last night. So it's gonna be interesting because now you got AJ Havrilla, who's catching fire right now for the Astro Falcons at every level he plays. It's exciting. Like I love having it on our network. I love that we have that partnership, and I love being able to turn on baseball as soon as I open Facebook. Baseball's on it, and it's from us.
Now let me ask you guys, because we're going to have Dana on at 1 o'clock, and then we didn't even tell everyone of the show today. BSing for an hour. Dana comes on at 1 o'clock. We'll do some more BSing. Mandy Bell, who covers the Indians for MLB.com, is going to be calling in. So it's Mondays with Mandy. And she's going to be telling everyone Francisco Lindor's hitting 3rd this year. Thank God. Mr. Francona, thank you. Bravo, sir. Bravo. You should have done it 4 years ago, but neither here nor there. I'm glad Lindor's hitting 3rd. And we're going to be talking about Mr. Chang, who has hit home runs in 6 of the last 7 days
Against his own team.
against his own team in
Congratulations.
simulations. In simulation games, 6 of the last 7 days he's hit home runs, which is unbelievable.
Yeah, he's a batting cage hero.
Yeah, well, hey. I'll be curious to see how much playing time he gets. Cesar Hernandez, and by all counts, and we'll get to Mandy on it at 2 o'clock. Cesar Hernandez, who normally peters out toward the end of the year, is going to be leading off. I think Cesar Hernandez is going to be a stud for this year because we're not playing 162 games. He's normally at his very best for 60 games. So I think Cesar Hernandez is going to be unbelievable at second base for the Indians. So
I think he got a bite of that hot sauce.
yeah, I think he did. Are we good? No. No. There we go. All right. Now he's good. All right.
That Gatorade went down the wrong way.
Oh boy. Yeah. That's. Does he have bubbly in that Gatorade? I just want to know if he has bubbly in the Gatorade. All right, 330-886-0813. All right, so back to what I wanted to ask. So we go into the playoffs. If you're in a best of 3 scenario and say you're the 2 seed, are you going to get cute and not start your number 1 starter in game number 1?
Well, I think it depends on the matchup. I mean, really, if it's your first round, you're saying?
Yeah.
How many rounds are we playing?
Well, I mean, okay. 1 and 2 they have buys. So 3's playing 6, 4's playing 5. If the 3 team is playing the 6 team, obviously they're the favorite in this. The 4 would be a slight favorite over the 5 in a best of 3 series. If you're the 3 seed, are you pitching your number 1 starter in a best of 3 series?
For me, it's always going to come down to you got to get there. I mean, it's the old Jim Hannick did it with Jake Gehring. You got to get there first. But if you're talking a 3-game series, depending on how it's spread out, you might be able to get your 1 in there twice.
You could.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, you could.
If it's every other day, and it depends on how many pitches they pitch.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of ifs. But I would pitch my 1, see how it goes. If you go open up to a 10-0 lead,
You're
right
taking
out of the gate,
You're taking them out of the game.
if you're visitors and you scored 7 runs in the first inning, you go, hey, appreciate you, but we're going to go out of the bullpen.
What is, and I think the number is like 20, and you can pitch the next day.
20.
Okay, so the 3 seed would be the home team. If you retire the side in order in the top of the first inning and then score 7 times in the bottom of the first inning, and my guy threw 15 pitches in the first inning, yeah, you're not pitching the rest of the day.
I wouldn't even start him. If we're up, if we score 6 or 7.
Well, you have to pitch in the first inning.
Well, you don't technically if you're the visiting team. If you score 7 in the first frame,
Yeah,
top
but
of the first.
again, the visiting team would be the 6 seed or the 5 seed in this scenario. In game 1, they would be the visiting team.
Okay.
So
if you're
the 3 seed,
okay.
and you retire the side on 14, 15 pitches, and then your team scores 7 runs in the bottom of the first,
You're done.
I'm looking at my guy and I'm saying, you're going to pitch game 2, you're out of here.
Yeah,
that's the perfect scenario.
And you go get a long reliever, which is typically like your spot starter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it also depends on what your rosters look like at that point, and if somebody's got a tournament. If your 16s have a tournament and you can't bring your 16s, you might be in big trouble. And you might have to use your starter. That's why I love the way the Class B is set up. Also because they can be on one team with the 16Us, and they can if somebody says, hey, I really believe in this kid, you can sign another contract with an 18U and play, which is really cool. And it gives local kids an opportunity to be seen on a big stage, but still get their reps in at 16U. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's a great rule. Because it used to be your organization. That's it. And if the Big B coach doesn't have a spot for you or doesn't think you're good enough, then you're stuck down at 16. Now you have an opportunity that you can go play somewhere else, 18s. And even this season especially, because you're playing on different nights, you're in a good spot.
So a kid, let's say he's playing for Dura Edge at 16U. There's no room for him at 18U, but he can go to A to Z and play 18U,
well, yeah,
A
it's
to
the same
Z.
organization, right? Yeah, it's the same organization, but it would be it would be like if the Avalanche needed a catcher and you
Okay.
catch 16 for A to Z,
Yeah.
you can go play for the Avalanche at 18 years.
Wow.
I think that's a great rule.
No, it is. It's just a little confusing.
Well, yes and no. The confusing part for us as announcers is keeping everything straight between
Sure.
14, 16, and 18.
Yeah.
And then especially whenever they play, there's some nights they play on the same night. But I've been really impressed, and I think the boys over at Whiting are a little bit fatigued now because a ton of their 16s play up at 18,
Yeah.
and then they go play at 16s. Like they're so good, but that's because they play up. But they're so tired now that you're starting to see it wear and tear, and the arms starting to get fatigued. And there's a couple players on their team we have got to look out for. There's a kid named Tyler Kammerer
Yep.
who is an absolute stud, like one of the better players, and he's only, I think he's 15, 16.
Yeah.
You know, so keep your eye on him. But Whiting's got a nice little team, and I think over the next couple of years they're going to be a powerhouse.
There's some good kids that we've seen this year. I mean, 18U. I mean, everyone pretty much should know what you're seeing at 18U. But I'm looking at the 16U and the 14U teams. The Astro Falcons 14U team is ridiculous.
Oh yeah.
And the kid that I am just really looking forward to seeing, not only playing baseball, but he's a 3-sport star, is Schneider, who's going to go to Canfield.
Okay.
And he's going to be a freshman. He's 6'3". He's a quarterback. You know that Coach McElroy is going to have hope and pray that this kid grows another 2 or 3 inches where he can be a solid post player for the Canfield for the Canfield basketball program. And by the way, he's a legit baseball player. Not only at first base, he's a pretty good pitcher.
Oh,
So,
they're loaded with talent.
Yeah.
You look at Scott Rourke's son, Colton, who's
Yes.
usually the third baseman.
yes.
He's going to be the backup quarterback for Springfield this year. So he is one snap away from being the guy as a freshman going to play for the Tigers, who went to the state championship. Not that you want anything to happen to Bo Brungard, but when you're in the quarterback position, when you're in that limelight, you always say you're one snap away.
Yeah.
Right? So when you look at it, a young man who's got a great head on his shoulders, loves the game of baseball, and just kind of fell into it as an athlete in quarterback. I mean, that team is loaded, and I think Scott Rourke does a great job of bringing in athletes. And the Astro Falcons do a great job of recruiting, naturally, because they've been around forever. But you look at that team up and down, and you're going to see some kids that are going to play not just baseball at the next level, but probably other sports.
You were talking about football, and Anthony and I were talking about Title IX going both ways. And let's say there's no football this fall, which we all hope that it happened. Or we all hope that football happens, but if it doesn't, the sports that are kosher, according to the OHSAA, golf, we have boys and girls. Tennis, we have boys and girls. Volleyball, girls. Okay, one sport for our boys to even things out. The natural choice would be boys volleyball. I say, let's go dodgeball, and we'll broadcast the games on YSN 8, the Ocho, and we'll have a good time with it.
When did we get YSN 8?
No, YSN 8, the
We
Ocho.
don't even have 2 yet.
Yeah, nobody told me about this.
No, well, I think it would be fantastic, and if we can get Cotton and to do a couple of games for the Ocho, I think it would be tremendous.
I think my man needs a break. I think that would be it'd be a fun sport to watch. I think it'd be bad for schools naturally, because that's a very violent sport.
We need violence.
For me, I think the sport that is up and coming, I think we've talked about it before, that I'd love to see opportunity knock for them is lacrosse. And
But they're right there with football, where it would be a contact sport.
See, I'm really trying to understand, and we had this conversation earlier, Ron. I'm really trying to understand where the lines are blurred on football and basketball, and then you add lacrosse and baseball. I mean, there's a lot of contact in all these sports. Now,
I know.
granted, football is a huge contact sport, but where do we draw the line? Like, they played basketball in this particular state this past week, and I think they're still playing up until the 15th. So what's the difference between a sweaty person, two sweaty people colliding and passing those germs or that contact, and you put pads on them in a jersey and they tackle you and they still have contact? That's where I'm just don't understand it.
Clearly, they're playing 8-foot zone defense.
Well, the Corona defense is what we're calling
Corona D. Yeah.
So
let's do the Corona D. Everyone get back. Let the 3-point shooters just have at it.
The NBA defense is basically I don't understand it. I think lacrosse would be ideal for this because it's contact, but it's not as much contact as you'd think. You know, it's a lot of spacing. It's hockey, which hockey is coming back.
Yes.
Soccer.
Well, at least we hope hockey's coming back. 9 Pittsburgh Penguins have been pretty much ixnayed.
And the Habs too.
Yeah.
You know, they just what they do 4 just the other day.
Yeah.
If I'm a Penguins fan, I'm hoping they get booted out so they get that first pick. I really, really want that.
I am not a fan of that. I mean, Buffalo just got hosed. Not that it would matter because the Sabres organization is so screwed up. It's not even funny. It's just, I'm so disgusted
There's
with that organization.
a lot of fans that would love to switch places with the Buffalo Sabres because you have a cup.
They don't have a cup. They've never
Didn't they
won
win a
one.
cup was it hot? Who was their
They
goalie?
never won one. They went to the finals. They lost to Dallas.
With those sweet jerseys.
Oh God, those jerseys! Oh, they were awesome.
I thought they won that. I apologize.
No, they didn't.
Shows you how good a hockey fan I am.
Brett Hall, his foot was still in the crease when he scored the winning goal.
Oh jeez.
Game
that
6
sucks.
in overtime. His foot was so far in the crease. Oh no, game over. That's it. And then they show the replay. His foot is this far in the crease, and I'm like, really? I mean, his whole freaking skate is in the crease. How could you not call that?
Interesting.
Yeah. So.
I don't know how they are allowed to bring these other sports back and not the other ones. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, what's it gonna take?
Who would you rather have as MLB commissioner, Fauci or Rob Manfred?
Is there a terrorist attack that both of them can go down? Like,
oh God. The views expressed on this show do not necessarily reflect those.
Neither. I mean, I'm not a fan of either one. Both I think are trying to err on the side of caution, but instead they're how do I even express this? They're putting their own platform out there.
Fauci doesn't hate America. Manfred hates baseball. That's why I'd have Fauci.
I think there's some people that would disagree with you on that.
Well,
first part of that statement.
I don't think he does, but he's overly cautious. Manfred's just an idiot. So
yeah, Manfred's the kind of guy that would not wear. How do I put this? Manfred would not wear the gloves,
Yeah.
as I call them.
Yeah.
If there was a hot pizza in the oven.
Yeah.
And Fauci would forget to turn it on and wear the gloves.
Which one's worse?
Yeah, which one's worse? The guy that doesn't cook the pizza or the guy that overcooks it?
Oh, God. And on that happy note, I'm just going to enjoy my Gates barbecue sauce. Okay, Dana Balish coming up in a bit, and Anthony can now cough all he wants in the next couple of minutes. We're back with Dana. Stick around, more to come.
21
Good evening,
News.
and thank you for joining us.
Let's get right to our top
More
story
experienced reporters
tonight. A new Wilmington
At
restaurant.
GM Lordstown,
telling more local stories
We'll look at
baby
efforts
boy
to
is
curb
recovering from a broken.
around our
Good
valley
Community in
afternoon.
Niles,
We are here in Youngstown, right up.
because you expect
Important for everyone.
No place like home.
more local news.
In Mercer County
before
Court.
they become life-threatening.
21 News is our valley's #1 local news.
Welcome home to a home made homier with Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods. Inspiration starts at BairdBrothers.com and is turned into reality when high-quality hardwoods are delivered right to your home. Baird Brothers has the latest design trends, shiplap and skinny lap interior siding, antique oak rustic flooring, and, well, you'll find them all at BairdBrothers.com. Ordered easily, delivered conveniently, enjoyed comfortably. BairdBrothers.com.
Hello, I'm Greg Burbick with G. Burbick Farms. For the last 100 years, my family has farmed in Columbiana and Mahoning counties. I began raising cattle in 1996 with the goal of providing a better product for you and your family on the dinner table. Our grass-fed and grain-supplemented black Angus beef are raised with no hormones, steroids, or antibiotics. We're known for our hometown-friendly service and incredible tasting products. We're locally owned and have customers across the tri-state area. Our products go from our farm to your family. Stop by our farm on New Buffalo Road or visit us on the web at gburbickfarms.com. Don't forget to like us on Facebook. G. Burbick Farms, it just tastes better.
Welcome back to a Monday edition of Running Points. Ron Potesta with you, and we are joined by 21 Sports Director Dana Balash on the YSN hotline. Dana, how are you today, sir?
Doing well. Run yourself.
Cannot complain. All right, so over the weekend, some coaches, some football coaches in Central Ohio all got together and essentially said, hey, we want to do football in the springtime. And apparently they weren't listening to my show on Wednesday when our director of communications for the OHSAA, Tim Streed, said there's no way we are moving football from fall to spring unless it's a decision made by Governor DeWine or a higher power. The OHSAA quickly and predictably told the Central coaches just that. It's a story that even though it's been refuted a million times, it seems like people just want to continue to buy into this whole idea that we're going to have spring football.
Well, the Ohio Central coaches run, and we can bring it to locally. Like, there's the Mahoning Valley Coaches Association, there's the Trumbull County Coaches Association, and that's basically what type of group this is. The Ohio High School Football Coaches Association, which is the representation of all the coaches in Ohio, does not endorse this. Their president, Tom Pavlansky, the head coach of the Lakeview Bulldogs, I talked to him last night, basically says, hey, look, this is not something that we're endorsing. This is something that we don't attribute it to, and certainly everyone's entitled to their opinions. So this is a case of where one group says, hey, this is what we'd like to do. It got some legs a little bit. That's why the High School Association, the Ohio High School Athletic Association, came out yesterday with the same statement they came out a couple of weeks ago that, hey, we are planning for an August 1st start for all practice. Things can change, but this is the plan we have as of now.
I don't understand, Dana, how the narrative just continues to be said, even though it's been refuted for the last 2 or 3 weeks. When are people going to get the message that the state of Ohio has, and the OHSAA has, zero intentions of moving football to the spring unless Governor DeWine signs on this?
Well, and I think the governor will ultimately, make a decision or whatever. But Ron, I think with other states doing it, I think, word gets around so quickly. I just think that, it's a case of where, if one state's doing, the Michigan governor suggested maybe they need to do that. What is it? North Carolina's backing up their season, or Tennessee, and some, the junior colleges have already said they're going to go to the spring, the Ivy League. Look, it's not as easy as that. You got to think about officials. You got to think about, and I think, Ron, the bigger question is, okay, let's just say, you go to the spring. How do you transition back then to the fall? I think that's the bigger question, because if your season ends, let's say in July, I mean, you're already practicing for the upcoming season. I just think there's too many questions right now. And certainly, I mean, is it possible? I mean, I think anything's on the table right now, but is it feasible? I don't know that.
And we talked about it earlier today on the show. If football doesn't get played in the fall, you have a girls' sport in volleyball and then two co-ed sports that are greenlit right now in tennis and golf. So you need a boys' sport to balance out the Title IX scales. What sport do you think would be the most, highest possibility to come to replace football in the fall if there's no football?
Well, I don't know if there will be a sport that does that, Anthony. I think what the state has to look at, and I think every administrator is looking at it right now, is, what does no football perhaps in the fall mean revenue-wise? And I think, that's a huge question that a lot of administrators, a lot of athletic directors, a lot of Board of Educations are probably going to look at. I don't think there is a sport that can fill that void. I think certainly, 5 games and playoffs is better than no season. I think the state's going to do everything in their power to play football, especially the playoffs, because that's a moneymaker for them. So, I think as each day goes past, it gets a little tougher. I mean, I get asked every day, what do you think? What do you think about the season? Do you think we're going to have a season? And simply, my question is, I think there will be a season. I think it will be a delayed season. But if you look at where we sit today and August 28th, I mean, a lot has to happen. And, when these rumors are put out there, Coach Pavlansky told me yesterday, look, until you hear it from the OHSAA, the Ohio Football Coaches Association, all it is rumor. And I think it's best said that way.
On the high school level, it's one thing. You go to the college level with Youngstown State University, some of the Power 5 conferences, and that would be the Big Ten and the Pac-12, have signed on to have no non-conference opponents. The ACC is going to be doing it very shortly, and that's going to leave the Big 12 and the SEC. One would think that those two will jump on board as soon as possible. For Youngstown State, you have a non-conference game opening this season against Akron. One would hope that they would be able to play this game because the fact that you'd probably have a large number of people, if they're going to allow fans, and that's a big if, at InfoCision Stadium in Akron. Have you heard anything regarding Youngstown State possibly playing just conference games, Dana?
I think that's a possibility, Ron. And look, I can tell you that if Youngstown State does not play Akron, they will not play the other two non-conference games. I think the FCS, and again, you look at the intangibles in here, Ron. I think it would be prudent for the FCS maybe to look at going to spring because, there's a lot of open dates. There's a lot of different things happening if the Power Fives and everybody else maybe wants to play, this time of year. But again, Ron, I think when it comes to high school, when it comes to college, if you play these games in front of select fans, I guess is the best way to put it, is it worth it? I mean, is it actually worth it? Because you're losing all kinds of revenue. I think, Ron, and people will ask, well, why can't you play non-conference games and why can you play conference games? Well, the simple answer is, look, in the Missouri Valley Conference, if you say to all the teams, hey, we want kids tested on Tuesdays and Thursdays, conference-wise, that could be done because everyone has to follow the conference rules. But if Youngstown State's playing Akron, you can't control that. Now, something comes to mind when you talk about Ohio State and you talk about, the Valley, Ron, especially in the Big Ten. Ohio State does not play every Big Ten team. So is there a chance where they could add those teams they don't play and play them to make it, instead of a 9-game schedule or 10 or whatever, back to the original 12? The Valley can do that too because everybody doesn't play everybody in the Valley Conference. But again, you're talking mega bucks to get teams here in the Valley Football Conference. It's not that big of a deal in the Big Ten. So, there's that possibility. Let's say Ohio State doesn't play, Illinois, on their schedule. Well, is there a chance they can now schedule Illinois to replace the Bowling Green?
Brian Driscoll, who covers Notre Dame for IrishBreakdown.com, a subsidiary of Sports Illustrated, he believes at some point in time the Power 5 conference is going to break away from the NCAA and just form their own thing. Assuming that happens somewhere down the road, the mid-majors and FCS are going to be what's left for the NCAA. It would be a very strange part of sports if the Power 5 were to go their separate ways from the NCAA. Dana, do you see something like that happening down the road?
Well, I think so, Ron. I don't think there's any question. Actually, it probably should have happened a while ago. Or these Power 5 conferences, what they decide to do and how they decide to do it. I think you're going to have the Power 5 conferences, and I think you're going to have, we'll have to see where the rest of those, 1A schools go, and then you're going to have, FCS. So I think that's a strong possibility, Ron. I think I'm kind of surprised it hasn't been done because I know there's been a lot of talk about it. Probably 4 or 5 years ago there was talk about it. So, and that's why you really haven't seen a lot of different teams jumping up to 1A and vice versa, because you just don't know what's going to happen.
Now, basketball was played in the state for the last week, and I think that they're going to play until the 15th. What has been the kind of the feel around the general public when they see, the state can open up sports to play basketball and get their revenue, and now they're going to close it back down and then talk about it after that? But is it kind of weird that they were able to play basketball for a week and a half and then shut it back down?
Well, the reason that order was put into place was for the basketball tournament down in Columbus. The lieutenant governor came out last week and says, hey, guys, if you want to scrimmage amongst yourself, you can do that, but only for a week, but you got to do this, and this. And I talked to coaches about it, and they just says it's not worth it to have all that testing done for 1 week. So that's why we haven't seen a lot of that. I would expect, an update. And if you pay attention, the lieutenant governor says, look, hey, we expect to update sports. Now, he didn't specify what sports this week. Governor DeWine was asked a question about high school football, and he says, hey, within the next 30 days, we'll kind of know what's going on. So are we going to know more this week, or are we not going to know more? And I think that's the big question. And I think a lot of coaches would just like to have some clarification on what they're planning for. Are we going to start the season August 28th? Are we going to start the season October 2nd? Are we going to cancel the season? Are we going to move the season? I think that's what coaches want, because that's what they tell me. They just want some clarity. They don't want to get their guys all jacked up and then have to bring them back down. And I can understand that, and I respect that. So I think, as each day goes, in my opinion, I just think it gets tougher and tougher because you just don't know what's going on. You got to see some light at the end of the tunnel, not only for coaches, but for athletic directors and administrators to kind of say, okay, this is what we're planning for. And I truly believe when you ask one question, it leads to 3 or 4 other questions.
30 days puts us into the middle of August, the latter stages of August. I would think, here we are, July the 14th, or the 13th, excuse me. I would think that they would want to have an answer before two-a-days open up on August the 1st. I mean, if once August the 1st comes around and you haven't said we're canceling the season or we're postponing the season until a future date, I think you're doing a major disservice if you wait until after August the 1st when two-a-days are already opened up. I mean, it would be a disaster if they did that.
Well, and again, I think that's why, now that the Ohio High School Athletic Association has a seat at the table on the governor's committee, I think that will be discussed. I think there will be a lot of other things that will be discussed right now. And Ron, certainly this is not a Bob Goldring decision. This will be a board of directors decision on what they want to do. The governor will announce guidelines, and then the Ohio High School Athletic Association has to ask themselves the question, can we impose these guidelines or whatever protocols and have a successful season? And my answer to that right now would be, if that guideline says you can only have an X amount of fans, I don't know if it's worth it for the schools to try and do it, because they're not bringing in the revenue they need, not only for football but for every other sport.
Dana, in today's Vindicator, John Vargo writes a really interesting article on Darius Quisenberry and the fact that he is coming back to Youngstown State. He received some input from Golden State, Cleveland, New Orleans, Charlotte, and Boston. Spoke to those 5 teams and got some pretty interesting advice from the 5 teams as he was trying to essentially see where he would be in the draft. And I have said from the get-go, Darius Quisenberry's not ready for the NBA right now, but in 2 years, with 2 more years of mid-major D1 play and the growth that Darius is expected to have on the floor, I think Darius could be a decent NBA prospect.
Well, the thing, Ron, with him is that was a win-win for him. It's a win for YSU. And not that Darius is coming back, but he got feedback on what he has to work on. And we were able to talk to him on Friday, and that will help. Obviously, when you get feedback from NBA teams, it's going to help you. Now, Darius will play 1 more year here. He'll graduate, then he'll have a decision to make. He could come back, he could transfer, he could kind of, call his own number of what he wants to do. So, that really helps. Jared Calhoun, that helps Youngstown State. You just keep your fingers crossed that, there could be a college basketball season as well.
Well, that's the big thing, and obviously our fingers are crossed, because the men's and women's team at YSU could be an awful lot of fun to watch this year.
Well, the men's team, they in 1985 they were a few seconds away from going to the NCAA tournament. Legitimately, they could contend for the Horizon League title this year. The women's team, with Mary Dunn coming back, with some new players there, just don't know where they fit in there a little bit. But I think the men's basketball team, it could be a special season, Ron.
Dana, always a pleasure. Look forward to catching up with you next week, sir.
Appreciate it. Have a good day.
You as well. There he goes, TV 21 Sports Director Dana Ballage, checking in, as always, every Monday at 1 o'clock on ysnlive.com. It's the Monday edition of Running Points. Anthony Hardwig back from vacation. I must say, I partook in the mild, and people are looking at me like,
You've been nibbling.
Yeah, you were nibbling. And I'm sure people are like, get your finger out of your mouth. That's disgusting. Well, I had some Gates mild barbecue sauce. Where's the camera? There it is. This is good. Yeah. I mean, this is really good. The extra hot. This is spicy. This right here is spicy. It's got some zing to it. It's not as hot as I thought it was going to be, but it does have some zippity doo-dah to it.
Yeah, it's pretty much. I mean, it's not. It says extra hot, but that's why they don't have the hot in between the mild and extra hot, because that's hot enough as it is.
Yeah, no,
so
this
if you had
is
an
good.
extra hot, you'd be like, oh.
Yeah, now this is, both of them are good. I look forward to partaking some stuff with the Gates barbecue sauce.
Savor it, because that's the only 2 you get.
Well, I mean,
unless you go online, you can order it online.
We can call the number, which by the way is 800-662-RIBS. Yeah, so I wholeheartedly trust the fat boy, soon to be skinny boy. I wholeheartedly endorse the barbecue sauce from Gates Barbecue. That is some damn good barbecue sauce. That really is. We're going to take a time out. On the other end, we got some stuff to chew on. Well, literally. I'll put some barbecue sauce on the stuff we're going to chew on. No, I mean, a lot of stuff to talk about. Can the OHSAA make the right decision without screwing a lot of people in the process? We can talk a little bit about that. Also, you were not here when Darius Quisenberry decided that he is coming back to Youngstown State. He's going to graduate in the spring of 2021, even though he's a junior. He would be graduating, and then he can call his own shots after 2021. My guess is, and we'll talk about this, my thought process is, look, if Youngstown State's really good in basketball, assuming we have a basketball season, and they do the unthinkable and go to the NCAA tournament, knock on wood, how could you turn your back on that? You would hope that he would want to come back for his final year of eligibility and possibly take the team a little bit further the next time. So a lot of stuff to chew on. We'll talk about that. It is a Monday edition of Running Point as man, that barbecue sauce is good. Monday edition of Running Point on YSNLive.com.
The details. Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods is one fine ride. Perfect cornering, superb handling, sporty and stylish, power to spare, plus awesome mileage. Yeah, jaw-droppingly beautiful lines and well appointed with luxurious trim. Put more oomph in your life and start beholding the molding. Find your home's fine hardwood at BairdBrothers.com.
Storm season.
I think we're under the gun for some heavy storms over the next couple of hours.
And Storm Tracker 21 is ready.
This is probably the one we're keeping a closer eye on.
On air.
And locally, we're going to have a lot of eyes on our area.
Online.
All right, let's talk high-risk futurecast and the timing of this weather.
On social media and on our app.
Stay in the showers I'm keeping my eye on in parts of Columbiana County.
Stay ready with Storm Tracker 21.
The severe weather threat now through around sunset this evening.
Hi everyone, this is DJ Yoakley with Your Sports Network. We appreciate your support of YSN and welcome you to the YSN family. Our broadcast streams are brought to you live at no cost to you by sponsors that are local to this community. Without the vision and generosity of our sponsors and partners, we would not be able to bring this game to you today. So please support the great businesses and leaders that are making this game possible. And if you're a business in need of great advertising and sponsorship opportunities, feel free to head over to our site for more information on the right fit for you. We are local, we are loyal, and we are live. We are YSN.
Welcome back to a Monday edition of Running Point on YSNLive.com. Ron Potesta with you alongside Anthony Hardwig. And Mandy Bell will be coming in at 2 o'clock via the YSN hotline. Mondays with Mandy. We will be talking Indians baseball. Mandy Bell broke the news over the weekend that Tito is planning on hitting Lindor third this year, mainly because you have a leadoff hitter in Cesar Hernandez, who comes to Cleveland from Philadelphia, and you can put Hernandez in the leadoff spot. You can have Santana hit second if you're going high on base percentage. You could have Ramirez hitting second. You could have Mercado hitting second and drop Lindor, Ramirez, and Santana and Reyes into the 3 through 6 lineup. Jumble that up however you wish. I like the idea of Lindor hitting third.
I mean, I liked him in the leadoff spot, and I like the fact that a pitcher starting off the game with the most feared hitter in the lineup, because no one wants to pitch to Lindor. I mean, the last season, he was probably the batter that pitchers were most weary about in the Indians lineup.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And you start the game off with that. That's a lot of pressure on the starting pitcher right off the bat. I mean, and you get him the most at bats. He's a great he's a great base runner. I just liked him in the leadoff spot. Now Cesar Hernandez is your prototypical, click and you shall receive leadoff hitter. So you definitely don't snub him the leadoff opportunity. So I think we'll have to see how it goes. I think it's a great thing that Lindor can lead off if something presents itself where you need a leadoff hitter in a pinch.
My only thought on that is, and I agree with everything you just said, Lindor is a fantastic leadoff hitter, but it's always a waste when he leads the game off with a home run, because I want him to be in the middle of the lineup and have him hit with guys on base. Now, you only get one shot in the first inning, let's be honest.
How many times did he hit a leadoff home run, and then how many times did the Indians use that momentum well? I mean, when he hits a leadoff home run,
I get it.
It's like a shot in the
No,
arm.
I get it. It's kind of a poor man's Ricky Henderson, where he's able to do what he does.
And Lindor is not like a 30, 40 home run
Well,
guy.
he does hit 30 home runs a year. That's
he does.
the thing.
Okay, he how many did he allow? I thought he was in the 20s.
He was, I think, 31 or 32.
Okay.
But
okay.
He's a guy that I want to have with guys on base. And like we said, I mean, the first inning is the only inning where you know for certain what's going to happen. Leadoff guy is leading off the game. The three hitter, you want him to be up with guys on base. It's all depending on your 1 and 2 hitters, obviously, if you're going to have guys on base. But the first inning is the only inning in which the batting order is going to be used in the way that you want it to be used. Everything else is now a crapshoot after the first inning. So if you can see both sides of it, where if you have Lindor leading off and he happens to lead off the game with a home run, all right, you're on your way. You've scored a run in the first inning. You've done your job. My whole argument is I'd like to see him in the middle of the lineup, because I do have a lot of faith in Mercado, and I do have a lot of faith in Cesar Hernandez. And if you have these two guys on, or one of them on, and you have Lindor up, okay, that home run can now be a 2-run dinger. An extra base hit, you're basically doing the same thing, and now you're putting Santana up or Ramirez up. I just think that if you have Lindor, Ramirez, Santana, and Reyes, and you can interchange them, except for the 3 spot, because you have Lindor at 3, you can interchange Ramirez, Santana, and Reyes, where you could probably sandwich Reyes in between Santana and Ramirez, because you got 2 switch hitters in Ramirez and Santana. You've got a right-handed bull in Reyes, who there's a completely different sound when he hits the ball, which is amazing. I mean, this guy is brutally strong. And then you have Domingo Santana, who I'm excited for as well. Good God, 3 through 7 is going to be an absolute nightmare if all of these guys are on. And the wild card in all of this is Bobby Bradley. I don't know if Bobby Bradley is going to be on this team or not, and now that the rosters are expanded to 30 players. This is something that we're definitely going to talk with Mandy Bell about. I mean, can you imagine if you have Bobby Bradley on this roster? You have all of these just behemoth type of guys that can hit the ball not only out of the yard, out of the friggin' county. And you add Bobby Bradley, who's got brute strength in his own right. I saw him hit a ball into the third deck, which he's the only guy that's done it in the history of Jacobs / Progressive Field. He's the only guy that's hit the ball in the third deck. That's prodigious power. I was, sidebar, when they did the All-Star game last year, Josh Bell was in the home run contest, a bunch of other left-handed hitters, and the talk was nobody had ever hit a ball into the third deck at Progressive Field. Which one of you guys is going to do this in the home run hitting contest? And they were all like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to do it." Nobody sniffed the third deck. I think there were 2 balls that went into the second deck. Nobody even sniffed the third deck. At BP, I think it was a couple of days after the All-Star break, Minnesota came into town, and at BP on that Friday or Saturday, Bobby Bradley put one into the third deck. So, but I mean,
no one's ever done it in a game. But has anyone ever? I mean, I'm sure there might be someone that's done it in BP.
From what we were from what all of us were told, no one had ever put it into the third deck in BP, and that's hard to believe because Junior was playing his entire career in Seattle and most of his career, I should say, and he had plenty of opportunities to come into Cleveland to take batting practice and whatnot. I find it hard to believe that Junior wasn't able to put one into the third deck.
Yeah, it's sketchy, but it's hard to hit up in the third deck. It's not easy.
That's a bomb. I mean, that's an absolute bomb. But back to the whole thing. Okay, you've got Ramirez who can hit 30, Santana can hit 30, Reyes can hit 30, Domingo Santana can hit 30. There's a lot of pop with those four guys. Add a Bobby Bradley who can come off the bench pinch hitting for someone, and you have, good Lord, there's a lot of offense. Potentially, there's a lot of offense with this team. I'm somewhat excited about what the Indians could do this year, albeit in a 60-game season.
I would like Carlos Santana protecting Lindor behind him because I think Santana is the best bet when it comes to his on-base percentage and his ability to not just hit home runs but hit extra base hits.
See, I'm agreeing with that. Yeah.
So, and I'm a Royals fan, and no one hits in Kansas City like Carlos Santana. I don't know if you've seen the stats.
Oh, he's unbelievable.
I don't think anyone visiting team has hit more home runs in Kauffman Stadium than Carlos Santana.
I'd have Hernandez leading off, Mercado hitting second, Lindor third, Santana, Carlos hitting fourth. I would have Franmil Reyes hitting fifth, Jose Ramirez sixth, Domingo Santana hit seventh, Naquin would probably hit ninth because I'd want Roberto Perez, who's a catcher and he's slow, he would hit eighth, and then I'd have Naquin, who's a leadoff hitter, batting ninth. And so you got Jackrabbits in the 9, 1, and 2 spot in the lineup in Naquin, Cesar Hernandez and Oscar Mercado. You got Jackrabbits in the 9, 1, 2 of the order, and then 3 through 7, you get prodigious power. I mean that. I don't want to put any extra expectations on the Indians because I think the Indians are in for a dogfight in their own division because Minnesota's good and I think Chicago can be really good. But I think if Cleveland could find their way into the postseason, and I know all of us were down, and I'm one of those people, and I'm not going to watch nearly as much as I want to. I honestly think if Cleveland can get into the postseason, they're going to be a team to watch out for because they have just enough pitching, and that offense. Holy crap! Can that offense put up some numbers?
It's going to be fun. And their schedule is, I think, the first 10 games are pretty. They got the Royals to start.
Yeah.
And then Chicago.
The Royals, Detroit, and Chicago.
Yeah, those are the you should. I mean, I know Chicago's a wild card, but you should probably win. Those are their first 10 games. You should probably win 7 of those and be 7-3 to start off the season.
Well, and again, it's going to be.
No, I'm a Royals fan.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, they're rebuilding.
Hopefully, they don't win 7 of those.
Yeah.
Because I think the Royals. I mean, and some people on MLB Network said it. The Royals are young and offensively heavy, so they could be a wrench in the monkey thing too. So
yeah, and they're rebuilding. They don't have as much pitching.
They don't have the pitching.
Yeah, did they have? If you were to combine, if you were to combine Kansas City's offense with Detroit's pitching, you would have an unbelievable team.
And you don't know how the young pitching in Kansas City is going to fare this year. And I think one of the wild cards for Kansas City is Danny Duffy because he's been a good pitcher. He didn't have a good season last year, but if he has another good season, he could be a good ace. So
Good.
We'll see.
Look, it's going to be an awful lot of fun. The Pirates, and we'll hopefully, knock on wood, try to get a hold of John Parado, who covers the Pirates.
Pirates keep getting drilled by suspensions and injuries.
Yeah, and that hurts in a big, big way. Hopefully, we'll get a hold of John Parado, and we'll get a Pirates perspective later in the week. Let's get to the phone lines. Rich, you're on the YSN hotline. What's up, brother?
Hey, good afternoon, young man, Ron.
What's up, man?
Is your cohort Anthony back yet?
Oh, he is. He brought barbecue sauce, brother.
How's he taking maybe the possibility of changing the name of the Chiefs now? What's up?
Oh, geez. I don't think that's on the horizon yet, but we'll see.
Get ready. I say, you know what? To all the owners and people who have the money and power to change things or keep things the way they are, grow some brass and stand up. That's all I got to say.
I'm going to be real curious to see what the Indians do if they are going to relent and change the name. And again, to their credit, they are going to talk with some Native Americans about this.
I wasn't here for this, but I think the Indians were very smart because they got ahead of it before the Redskins were caught with their pants down a little bit, and they've been in this trouble for the last 7 years. The Indians saw what was happening to the Redskins and said, let's get ahead of it from a PR standpoint. And I don't know how those conversations are going internally, but at least from the outside perspective, it looks like they care enough to have those conversations. So
Let me ask you guys something. Is this entire, with all these teams under attack, supposedly, by the Native Americans, is this really because the Native Americans, just because everything is going crazy in this country such as it is? Name the groups you want. There's too numerous to list. What really is the crux of the problem here?
Well, I saw an interview, or I saw a column where as early as 16 years ago, they did a poll of Native Americans who had no problem with the term Redskins, and they had no problems with the term Indians. And it was overwhelming, like 85 to 90% of the Native Americans that were interviewed. Now, again,
but then you
that
have
was
to
16 years
you
ago.
also have to wonder which Native Americans they pulled and how into their culture they were.
Yeah.
Because there's people on both spectrums, like every culture.
Now, I have a friend of mine.
Just don't know.
I have a friend of mine who goes out to the Southwest, into New Mexico and Arizona. And a couple of years ago, he was going out there sporting Chief Wahoo. And the looks he got from the Native Americans out there was one of disgust. And I can understand why. I mean, look, Chief Wahoo, and I grew up as an Indians fan. Chief Wahoo is a disgusting character.
The original Chief Wahoo?
Well, the original one was ridiculous. But this one was, and you look at this from the Native Americans' perspective, it's not a flattering picture of a Native American. It really isn't. But my argument was, okay, if you get rid of Chief Wahoo, I'm good with that. Don't get rid of the name Indians, because again, the last I heard, and this is why the Indians organization wants to talk with the Native Americans throughout Ohio and throughout the country. The last we were told via a poll, most of the high percentage of Native Americans that were spoken to said they had no problem with the term Indians in terms of the Cleveland Indians. So I don't know if that's changed or not, Rich. And I credit the Indians organization for at least going to Native American reservations and having a frank conversation. Because frankly, Rich, the rest of America doesn't get a vote on this one. The only people that should really be heard from are the Native Americans.
Unfortunately, the rest of America, groups remaining unsaid, have something to say about this, and this is what we're stuck with at this time in our history. I got a question for you, Ron. 5 expansion teams from the 60s, or expansion teams from the 60s. I'm looking for 5 great players that came out of those. What could you do to help me with that?
Are you talking baseball or are we talking?
Yes,
okay,
yes,
baseball.
Baseball.
right.
I'm at a loss. I'm pulling brain fart here.
All right, so the New York Mets were a expansion team in 1962. Montreal was an expansion team. The San Diego Padres were an expansion team in the 60s. I want to say Kansas City wasn't no, Kansas City went to no. Well, Kansas City A's went to Oakland, but the Kansas City Royals were an expansion team.
Okay, I need 5 great players from the sum of those teams. Off the top of your head, what can you do to help me? I'm lost.
Well, the Mets had in the early years they had Don Clendenon was via the expansion, if I'm not mistaken, and he wasn't a bad player. Nate Colbert was, and he was a first baseman, if I'm not mistaken, with the Padres. He wasn't a bad player back in that era. Oh gosh, I'm going to have to really do some research.
Now you know what? I just thought about this because the question that was posed to me said 5 great players from expansion teams in the 60s. They didn't say players from the 60s. They said from expansion teams. So it's kind of a trick question. If that's the case, then that makes it a little easier.
Well, yeah, because I mean the expansion draft, and you can also throw in the Rule 5 draft, and the best player to ever come out of a Rule 5 draft is Clemente, but he didn't come out in the 60s. He came out in the mid-50s when the Pirates took him from Brooklyn.
Okay. I'm talking about if the question is posed that 5 great players to come out of the 60s expansion teams, well, Padres, automatically Tony Gwynn.
Yeah, but he wasn't. He didn't play in the 60s.
And they didn't say play in the 60s. They said 5 great players from 60s expansion teams. It's kind of a trick question.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going from the birth of the franchise to today, obviously Tony Gwynn is the most important member of the San Diego Padres. If you're going to go in that direction, Andre Dawson, Gary Carter. Good Lord, Vlad Guerrero. Yeah, they were all members of the Montreal Expos. Pedro Martinez pitched for the Montreal Expos. So those 4 guys would come to mind. But and again, I would think that it would be the first couple of years of the expansion team.
I'm gonna have to check into that more. You know, it was about a decade ago or a little bit more. I had a nice, snug little place over in Brownlee Woods, Poland area, and the guy who lived 2 doors down from me played minor league ball for the Montreal Expos. He was there during the Randy Johnson era with all the guys who played.
Oh yeah.
And he named all the guys he played with, and I said, "What happened to you?" He said, "You can't teach speed." And my legs couldn't compete.
That's it.
It's amazing. And the guy that lived the 2 buildings down played ball for the Houston Astros in the 70s and was a shortstop/second baseman. He sniffed the major leagues for about 34 games, and then the same thing with him. You know, he said, "I got dusted by guys who could run backwards faster than I could run forward." Pretty amazing to hear what these guys had to say. Great stories. Stories.
Absolutely. I mean, it's you get so much respect for guys that are on the cusp of making the big leagues. Dan Striffler, who went to Austin Town Fitch, he's a kid that was so close to making it to the major leagues. He petered out in AAA ball.
Rowan.
Yeah, absolutely, Rowan. It was on the doorstep. He played for the Cubs AAA affiliate in Iowa. You know, there's plenty of guys with local ties to this area that were just so close, whether they went to AA or AAA ball, but they just didn't get the call for whatever reason.
And you know what? It's amazing. These guys were still in really good shape 10 years ago. I mean, 10 years ago I was 60 pounds lighter. And could still hold my own against these guys if I tried, and they were the same age. They're just built differently.
Yeah.
Into the same about the guys that beat him out.
No, it is. It's absolutely amazing. Scott Knox always tells the story when he was in high A ball with Prince William. He was the center fielder. Barry Bonds was in left. Bobby Bonilla was in right.
Oh boy. Oh, well, now we're talking some talent.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, it's you got arguably the greatest player not named Babe Ruth in left field, and you've got a pretty damn good player who we celebrate his day every July the 1st because his agent's a freaking genius over in right field. And here's Scott Knox. He's in center field.
No. Hey, thanks. It's a great show, guys. Have a great day.
I appreciate it. I mean, that's kind of the equivalent of I was in the same league as a broadcaster with Kevin Burkhardt, who's I think everyone knows he's a household name. Joe Block, who's done a very nice job with the Pirates. He and I were in the same league. Tom Hart, who is a very, very good football and basketball broadcaster for the mothership, concentrating in the Southeastern Conference. T. Hart was in the same league as I was. Patrick Keenis, who has done a lot of Olympic stuff on Westwood Radio. He was in the same league as me. Yeah, and here I am. I mean, it is what it is. You know, sometimes you get an opportunity to see greatness, and I've often said I definitely love watching the guys that I grew up with as a broadcaster, not physically, but we all were in the same league together. Ben Ingram, who's with the Atlanta Braves organization, he was in the same league as me in AA ball. So it's fascinating how many people I've seen that are now in the major leagues or doing some other things that are really cool with the game.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people have those kind of stories when, whatever profession you're in, you'll look at the people maybe you went to school with or the people that were in the same class as you, and all of a sudden they're superstars in their field, and you're sitting there like, what happened to me?
330-886-0813, the number to call. All right, so Darius Quisenberry, he was in conversations with a number of organizations, the Cavaliers, the Celtics, the Warriors, the Pelicans, the Hornets, and all five of them had some advice for Darius. Now, I think that Boston, you have a special place because their head coach used to coach in the Horizon League. Brad Stevens was the head basketball coach at Butler. Butler was the team in the Horizon League under Coach Stevens, and I'm sure that given the fact Gordon Hayward is a Butler guy and he plays for the Boston Celtics, I think the Celtics probably gave him the best advice of the five teams. But I think Darius, and he's not ready for the NBA. That doesn't mean that he's not going to be ready in 2 years. I think Darius Quisenberry has the potential to be a solid NBA player.
Yeah, it's there. You know, some people you can see it's there, some people you can see it's not. He's got work to do, and I bet the teams that he had conversations with told him that. He's got some work to do, and he'll go to the Youngstown State and he'll work on it, and we'll see what he can do these next 2 seasons.
Yeah, and again, I would hope that depending on what Youngstown State does this year, knock on wood, we have basketball. If Youngstown State has the season we all are envisioning them to have, I would hope that Darius would be back for his last year of eligibility at Youngstown State. But as Dana reported, hey, he graduates next spring. Darius Quisenberry could go to a Power 5 conference and get a little bit more notoriety going into the NBA draft in 2022.
When he first made that announcement that he was going to go into the draft, or he was going to, that said to me that he was looking at transferring to a Power 5 school. And he didn't this year, but that's still definitely on the table. If they have a really good season and he gets exposure this year, and someone in the SEC or maybe ACC, no. I don't think he's that caliber. But someone in the SEC, maybe the Big 12, calls him up and says, hey, we need a spot filled. Can you come fill it? I don't think he wouldn't jump at that opportunity.
Given the fact, and I don't want to play conspiracy theorist, but Bobby Huggins saw just how good Darius is when Quisenberry lit up West Virginia at the Cavelli Center. And if we have a season and a full season and not just, hey, you're going to play your conference opponents and that's it, because West Virginia is on the schedule down in Morgantown. Let's say that Darius has another huge game. Who's to say that Coach Huggins doesn't look and say, hey, if he's interested in going elsewhere after he graduates and he has one more year of eligibility, one would think that Coach Huggins would look at this young man and say, yeah, you can come to Morgantown and play for us.
He'll be in his ear. I'm sure he will be, especially if Quisenberry goes and has a really good game in West Virginia. Bob Huggins will definitely open his eyes a little bit and think, hey, this kid's going to be a fifth-year senior. Those are the great coaches that aren't members of the schools that get a lot of one-and-dones. That they're not the Dukes, they're not the North Carolinas. The great coaches in that second tier of schools get those fifth-year senior transfers and use them to their full potential.
330-886-0813. That is the number to call. We're with you until 3 o'clock as we will have Mandy Bell on at 2 o'clock, and we will we'll get her on to talk about what's going on in summer camp. And I hope she does an American Pie reference. This one time at summer camp? This one time at baseball camp?
Oh, geez. She's been really good at the social media aspect, though, posting stuff live at the ballpark. And she's a good follow on Twitter. So if you don't follow her, make sure you do, because it's a fun follow. And she's kind of pulling back the curtain a little bit because we don't really get to see a lot into summer camp right now. So.
Yeah, she's doing a really good job with that, and I absolutely love her reporting. You can see what she does on MLB.com. If you follow the Indians, she is a fantastic talent, and the Indians organization very blessed to have someone as the caliber of Mandy Bell covering the Indians. And so like I said, she does a fantastic job. I mean, okay, she graduated from Penn State. We all have our, we all have our, our imperfections. She didn't graduate from God's school, but that's okay.
At least she didn't graduate from USC or.
Oh no, I would never have her on the show. And I'll tell her this: if you had graduated from USC, you ain't allowed on my show. That ain't happening. I don't put anybody that graduated from the University of Spoiled Children on this program. It's not happening. Yeah.
It'll be interesting. We talk about Notre Dame. It'll be interesting to see what happens to them if ACC goes conference only, which they're going to do.
We spoke with our guy from Notre Dame, Brian Driscoll, on Friday, and the ACC, to their credit, is going to help Notre Dame. And, they're going to provide 6 games. Okay.
There's a future of Notre Dame, though. I mean, do they stop being an independent? Does this force their hand and maybe in the future of Notre Dame football turn into an ACC team?
If the Power 5 decides that they want to exit from the NCAA, then I think Notre Dame has no alternative.
Because otherwise they'll be playing a bunch of MAC schools.
Exactly. Because once you get away from the NCAA and you're creating your own, I can't see where the NCAA would allow one of their holdovers to play one of the traders.
Right.
So it's and I think that Notre Dame, look, they're an ACC conference team in all sports except football. And I think if this worst case scenario does happen, which honestly believe it is going to happen at some point in time, then I think that Notre Dame will have no choice but to join the ACC.
It's also, I don't know if they've established this, but these conferences, what are they going to do for the postseason when it's not conference? Are they going to compete in postseason play? Because they said every fall sport's going to be conference only. So it's not just football; it's your volleyball, it's your golf, it's your tennis. What's going to come about when tournaments come around? Are they going to say we're not going to participate in postseason, or we're going to participate in postseason? How does that affect their rankings because they're only playing teams in their conference? Ohio State doesn't have that big game against Oregon anymore.
Nope.
So it's going to be real funny to see, because the SEC is going to have a lot more games against ranked opponents now than the Ohio States.
Yeah, and the thing is, and unfortunately, people need to hear this because it's true. Not because I want to say it, but it's true. The SEC is the best conference in college football. It has been for quite some time.
It's not even close, Ron.
Yeah, unfortunately.
It's not close.
No, it isn't. Unfortunately, they are going to have a lot more power in this because they're going to be playing in the best conference, and if you're only playing your conference teams,
and now
the ACC pretty much sucks except for Clemson and
Florida State, maybe,
and Florida State, maybe
sometimes.
The U.
No, not this year.
The Big 12 is Oklahoma, maybe Texas,
sometimes Baylor.
Yeah,
not this year.
The Pac-12 is the Pac-12 is
it's
better
Oregon
than what we.
And Washington is what it is,
and it's better than what we normally see because we don't normally see the Pac-12 because they play their games at 2 in the morning on the Eastern time zone. The Big Ten is Ohio State and a bunch of mediocrity.
Well, it's Ohio State, it's Penn State.
Penn State's okay. I mean,
but they're national contenders.
They are.
They'll finish in the top 10.
But they don't get past Ohio State. That's their problem.
They did one year, and then they got snubbed out of the playoffs anyway.
Well, that's true. Michigan is Michigan.
Michigan always craps to bed in the big game.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and you got Wisconsin. Who is okay.
They're better than the other conferences minus SEC. Big Ten. Big Ten second.
I don't even put them at second.
Who do you have better than the? Because the Big 12's got Oklahoma and nobody.
Well,
Pac-12's.
The Big 12 actually does have some decent teams.
They have decent offenses.
The Big 12 doesn't play defense. That's optional. It's close. I mean, it's the ACC.
No.
is dead last because you've got Clemson and garbage.
Hey.
Georgia Tech is average. Come on, let's be honest. If Notre Dame were to join the league, it would be an uptick for them. Not to say that Notre Dame is going to be anything special after 2020. Their recruiting has been god-awful.
It's been rough, but then again, you don't know what's going to happen in a couple of years. Notre Dame's always a team that seems to grab talent out of nowhere.
Yeah, unfortunately, they whiffed on their offensive coordinator position. Yeah, Tommy Rees is not that was such a stupid decision by Notre Dame. It's crazy. We're going to talk some baseball. Mandy Bell is coming up. We're going to talk Indians baseball this one time at summer camp. We'll see if we can get a summer camp story from Mandy Bell. That's coming up in a bit. Stick around. More to come.
Baird Brothers remains your source for fine hardwood products. For the time being, we're open for customer pickup only on weekdays, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., and Saturday from 9 a.m. till noon. Place your order online at BairdBrothers.com. Baird Brothers, for the place you love.
Quality, customer service, and integrity. Those are the 4 words that have driven our success since 1957 at Joe Dickey Electric.
Joe Dickey Electric is one Mahoning Valley landmark business that stays current with the requirements of our customers. Family owned and managed, we are an electrical contractor and energy solutions provider. Every member of our team adds to his or her skill set through ongoing training. Residential, commercial, industrial, automotive, and more. We keep ahead of the needs of our customers with a fleet of more than 50 vehicles and 24/7 emergency service, so you're never left in the dark.
The 4M Company, being an architect and construction manager for over 40 years, has had the opportunity to use many different electrical businesses for our projects. The depth, quality, and knowledge and attention to detail displayed by Dickey Electric makes them stand out above all the rest.
For state-of-the-art expertise and a timeless commitment to our customers, contact Joe Dickey Electric. We are everything electrical.
I'm feeling pretty good about myself, like I'm living the dream. Platform shoes, strut down the street. It's gonna get hot in here, hope you can handle the heat.
Over the years, you watched us grow, and as we've grown, so has the Myers Family Insurance team.
Thanks to all of you who have trusted our families to help you with your Medicare needs.
Myers Family Insurance looks forward to helping you now for years to come. So call our family today and remind them how cute we are.
Myers Family Insurance continues to be the area's resource for all your Medicare and retirement needs. Call today, 330-286-3044.
It's a Monday edition of Running Point on YSNLive.com. Ron Potesta with you alongside Anthony Hartwig, and we are pleased to be joined on the YSN hotline by one of the best baseball writers that the city of Cleveland has. She covers the Indians for MLB.com. She is Mandy Bell. We're calling this segment Mondays with Mandy. Is that all right with you, Mandy?
Oh, that's fantastic. I'll take that.
Hey, under the circumstances, obviously, we should be well past the halfway mark, and the Indians should be in first place by a handful of games over Minnesota. Unfortunately, we live in a COVID world, and we're not going to be starting the season until next Friday. But under the circumstances, how is summer camp going in Cleveland?
Honestly, it's been going pretty well. I mean, I think that they're running as smoothly as they possibly can during all of this, and you can see the adjustments on a daily basis that they've taken. I know they've always had team meetings every morning, and that's typically where Terry Francona will name an MVP from the day before. I guess it's a camaraderie thing that they have for their their spring training or summer camps or wherever they may be preparing for the season. Now, because they can't gather in large groups, they do that out on the field before each game, and they talk about the guy from the night before, and they give them a nice $100 bill right on the spot as their reward, and they make sure to keep their distance. So they're taking it super seriously, as we all are. Media has a whole bunch of different guidelines to be following, and everything seems to be going smoothly, at least here so far, which has been nice to see.
Friend Reyes got a life lesson as he went to a 4th of July party, did not have a mask on, and he wasn't shamed. And I love the Indians organization for not really ripping into Friend Mill, because it was an honest mistake where he wasn't social distancing with a mask on, and they didn't rip him. They didn't say anything negative. They just, it's a life lesson. And I think to Friend Mill's credit, he learned an awful lot as well. And I thought the Indians handled it extraordinarily well.
I thought they did too. Like you said, they didn't shame him. They didn't point fingers. They didn't get angry. They just wanted to use it as a learning experience. And I think that doing it in that way allowed everybody to benefit from it. I know Fremo, whenever he came back, he was super apologetic. Like Tito says, he seems like a really, really great and honest guy, and that was just a complete honest mistake on his behalf, and he admitted that, and he said that that's not something that he'll ever do again. But Tito even was talking about how this was a learning experience that he used, and not to make Fremo look bad, but to use that with the rest of the team and say, look, this is how serious we have to be this year, and it's different and it's difficult, and we get that, but if this is what's going to happen outside of the ballpark, then we have to make sure that our guys here at the ballpark are going to be safe and protected, because everyone wants to have this season get played in its entirety. And the Indians are doing everything they can to make sure that their squad stays safe and healthy. So it was a really good learning experience for everybody.
As you said, it's a learning experience for everyone, the team. And what have been some of the adjustments the Indians have had to make on the fly in the last kind of week as they go into this summer camp?
You're saying like health-wise, or
anything? Just the way they go about things. Has there been anything where they've thought it was going to go one way and they've had to make adjustments on the fly to kind of change what they're doing?
Yeah, mostly it's just been just going day by day to see how guys have been feeling. I mean, obviously with only 3 weeks in preparation as a full team on field workouts and stuff, you have to ramp guys up quickly, but you have to make sure that you're not pushing them too far. So they've been trying to have these inter squad scrimmages based on the pitchers that are going to be throwing that night and how stretched out they are right now. The game length is based on how many innings they need to see. And the Indians are very clear in how much they're monitoring their position players in that time period. So if they don't think a certain position player is going to be ready to go for that type of a length, and then they make sure that they sit them out, or they have other guys play in. So if as an example of just going on the fly and just adapting, they had their team interpreter starting in left field last night to make sure that they had a body out there, but not putting out the wrong guys who may not necessarily have been ready to do that much activity just yet. So they've been just trying to do whatever they can to make sure that their pitchers are ready, while balancing just easing their position players into. So it's been a whole balancing act, but they've been able to adjust so far.
Mandy Bell talking Indians, and you can see Mandy's work at MLB.com. If you follow the Indians, you definitely know who Mandy Bell is, a very talented writer. She joins us on the YSN hotline. Mandy, you broke the story over the weekend that Tito is leaning into the direction of wanting to use Lindor in the third spot of the lineup, which I think is a brilliant decision, mainly because Cesar Hernandez and Oscar Mercado can be the leadoff hitter or the second hitter. You also have Jose Ramirez, who can be used in the 1 or the 2 spot. My thinking is Cesar Hernandez and Oscar Mercado would be 2 really good table setters for a middle of the lineup that would include Lindor, Ramirez, Domingo Santana, Carlos Santana, Franmil Reyes. All of a sudden, this 1 through 7 spot in the lineup could be really good over a 60-game stretch.
Yeah, it's crazy. A year later, what 2 guys and even 3 with the rise of Oscar Mercado can do for this lineup. I know going into last season, that was the big talking point: was does the lineup have enough depth to be able to score enough runs to be able to compete this season? And now we're starting to look at it. You plug in Hernandez at the top. You have Franmil as a power force in the middle, and whether Mercado slides in up at 2 or it goes down at 9 and just turns over to the top of the order, I think that they're pretty set. Just depth-wise, it starts to look a lot better than the situation they were in going into last year, which I'm sure is way more comforting for their coaching staff heading into this season.
And you were talking about Mercado sliding down to 9, the wild card in all of this, and he's healthy due to the ACL injury from last year, and that's Tyler Naquin. Naquin could be a darn good number 2 hitter.
He could, and I mean, the season that he had last year, it just made it all the more frustrating for him to have to cut it short. He was having his best and healthiest, obviously, season since he's had since his rookie year, and he was really settling in nice. He was down at the bottom of the order last year, and he was just a really great bat to have down there. I know he was very happy with the way his season was going. The Indians were very pleased with what they saw from him, and so if he can pick up where he left off, he's another bat that can get added in there, and that just keeps extending that depth throughout that whole batting order.
Coming into a normal season, the Indians' rotation wasn't exactly the healthiest bunch in the world, but now that they've had a lot of time to get healthy, what's the rotation look like going into the season now?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have Bieber as your number 1, Clevenger's number 2, Carrasco's 3, and then 4 and 5, assuming they stick with a 5-man rotation from out the gate, it's going to be between Plesac, Savali, and Pleco. You have those 3 right now. It looks like Savali might have a little bit of the edge to sneak in and be the lock in that, and then you have Plesac and Pleco trying to battle to see who would be in the rotation and then who maybe gets put in the bullpen to start the year. But they have the depth there, and even after losing somebody like Corey Kluber over the offseason, Trevor Bauer at the deadline last year, just been so impressive to watch them just churn out their talented starting pitchers. It's a really, really mind-blowing to think how long that deep that pipeline truly is. But yeah, it looks like it'll probably, my guess right now would be it's going to come down to Plesac and Plitko fighting it out for that fifth spot.
Now, if we go to East Lake, the home of the captains, where we find Tristan McKenzie. Now, obviously, in a normal situation, if Tristan had pitched last year, he would probably be a much more viable candidate. But because he didn't pitch last year, I don't know. Do the Indians try to give him a little bit of an opportunity to pitch on the major league level? And if they do, I mean, does the clock start in this 60-game season if he gets called up to the majors?
Right. I mean, I think that there's a lot to figure out there, and I think that a lot of it will just come down to the health of their rotation. Honestly, if I don't think they even worry about that, just bringing him up if the rotation stays healthy. It just seems like why put him into a situation where he hasn't pitched in a game since August of 2018 and then throw him into the middle of a season where it seems like every single game counts and every single game is a must win because you only have 60 games this season. So I think at this point you try to just rely on your guys that you have because they do have such a strong rotation. But I mean, Tristan McKenzie is an arm that they're excited about. It's one that has a lot of upside, and obviously he's been in their top 30 prospects for as long as they've had him, and the excitement is there. And if they needed to dip into that, they have him there, and I'm sure he's getting tired of facing his teammates and having just inter squad scrimmages for however long he's been just trying to rehab and get back. But to me, I don't think this is the year that he comes up, but he's certainly going to be an option if push comes to shove and they get in a crunch situation.
Mandy, is there any chance that Tito does a Tampa Bay in that maybe he starts with the back of the rotation, he starts with a reliever for an inning and then goes to the starting pitcher? Or are we just going to go strictly starting pitching? Because it seems to me you don't do that with Bieber, Clevenger, or Carrasco, but with the other two, maybe the thought process is that you can get away with doing that.
Honestly, I mean, it's definitely going to be an option, and I'm sure they're weighing every single possible strategy to find the most success for this type of a unique situation. But I don't see it happening with this type of rotation. It just seems like they have so much confidence and trust in all of their guys. And like you said, it's not something that they're going to even mess around with when you have guys like Bieber, Clevenger, and Carrasco in the top three spots of your rotation. But even with Savali, I mean, the depth that he just gave them last night in his first inter-squad appearance of the summer, I mean, he already almost reached 100 pitches. The work that he put in over the last 3 months of the quarantine process, that was one of the first things Tito talked about, was how impressed he was with Plesac and Savali, both the young guys, just how prepared they came into summer camp and how well they maintained their arms during this process. And it just seems like they're all stretched out and really ready to go, that I don't even know if they'll need to start considering those types of options.
When you look at the Indian schedule, I mean, they start their first three series are Royals, Tigers, and White Sox. You got to imagine when you're looking at that, those first three series are put at a premium to come out of those with 7 or 8 wins at least to kind of put them in a good position to go into the meat of their schedule. There are a lot of really formidable opponents after those first three series.
Yeah, I mean, you start looking at their schedule as a whole, and I know it's a completely new year and teams are different from last year, but if you look at just the records of these teams from last season, the Indians' schedule would be the second easiest in the majors, with the Twins having the easiest, quote-unquote, easiest schedule based on the team's records from last season. So, yeah, I mean, they're in a good spot. They're playing all against the Central for 40 games against the AL Central, 20 games against the NL Central. I mean, it looks like that they're setting up for a nice little run. It seems like they have the depth to be able to get through a 60-game season like this if there are any bumps and bruises along the way. And, I mean, they're really, it seems like heading into the year in a good spot to make some sort of a run.
Mandy, before we let you go, and again, Mandy Bell from MLB.com, kind enough to join us in the 2 o'clock hour on the YSN hotline. Before we let you go, the rosters are going to expand the first part of the season, and I'm curious, where does Bobby Bradley fit into this? Because it seems to me that this guy, if you expand the rosters, Bobby Bradley could be one terrific pinch hitter in the latter stages of the ball game, or give Santana or whoever a blow over at first base every once in a while.
I know it's tough. Bobby Bradley's one that it just seems like I get tweets about the most. It's a tough situation for him because he's just like the odd piece out in this setup that the Indians have right now. So when they split up their camp between Progressive Field and Lake County, everyone at Progressive Field seemingly would be competing for a spot on the 30-man, and then you have everyone else at Classic Park who necessarily is not as much in the running. And to have Bobby Bradley start in Lake County, it seemed shocking at first, but then you start thinking about it, and Santana's obviously locked up at first, and then you have both Domingo Santana and Franmil Reyes who will get the majority of the time at DH. They'll be splitting it back and forth between who's in the outfield and who's the DH. And so it just seems like it would be a spot that would be taken up just solely, like you said, on maybe like a pinch hit opportunity late in the game if they would need it. And I don't know if that's something that they wanted to carry. I don't know if that's what went into their thinking, but it just seems like that defensively he wouldn't really have anywhere to fit in at this point. And if you're going to spell Santana, which I know he's somebody who would beg and beg to make sure that he's in every single game, you have Jake Bowers if he would make it. You also have someone like Mike Freeman if he would make it, who can play some first for them as well. So it just seemed like he was the odd man out in this weird jigsaw puzzle that they have going. But I know they're still excited about his future, and maybe in the next year or two he'll be able to find a more permanent role. But for now, it just seems like it was hard to fit him in.
It speaks for the talent that this ball club has, and I'm excited because I think if Cleveland can find themselves into the postseason, there could be all kinds of interesting stuff happening. Knock on wood, pray that we have baseball all year long from this point.
Absolutely. I know. I think everyone's holding their breath and crossing their fingers and doing everything that we can to try to make sure that everyone stays safe and healthy so we can have this full season.
Mandy, before we let you go, and if I promise this is the last question, what is the latest? What's the latest on the Indians organization in terms of their moving forward with possibly a new name? Maybe they're talking about just leaving the name as is. What's the latest with the possible name change?
The latest is that we've heard from them is just their statement that they put out, oh goodness, what was it, 2 weeks ago now, saying that they're starting to have those discussions and they're open to having the discussions about figuring out the best path forward for their nickname and the organization as a whole. I know with the Redskins going on today and everything that was changing with Washington, I know that a lot of people are now starting to look to the Cleveland organization saying, okay, well, this happened so quickly. Now what's that mean for you guys? From that perspective, I mean, we haven't heard any more updates from them, but I know that everyone that we've talked to on the team, Tito, players, everyone is saying that they really want to listen and they want to figure out what's the best thing to do. So I think they're having as many conversations with all the right people to try to figure out exactly what would be the best situation for them. I just don't know how quickly this will transpire.
Cleveland Bells sounds good.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
And Mandy, always a pleasure. Look forward to catching up with you later this summer. And I guess we have to stay 6 feet away from each other in the press box.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, guys.
All right. Thank you so much. Mandy Bell from MLB.com. She does a fantastic job covering the Indians. And as Anthony, you said, she's fantastic on Twitter as well.
Yeah, she's a great follow on social media platforms. And she's one of the people that really pull back the curtains a little bit and lets you see into what the Indians are kind of up to in the last couple weeks. And it's nice to see people, reporters that cover teams do that, and she's one of the best at doing it.
Yeah, definitely. She would do really, really well if Major League Baseball wanted to, I don't know, use the younger generation to market the game, being that you suck at it right now, and you need some young blood in there to market the game.
There are some teams that could really use. I mean, I don't know what her experience is with running a social media account, but
she runs hers pretty well.
She runs hers pretty well,
yeah.
And if any of the MLB teams want someone to run a social media account, they might snatch her up pretty quick.
Yeah, but she does a fantastic job
she's also
covering the Indians.
She's also a great writer,
Yeah.
and that can't be lost just because she tweets really well.
Yeah,
I mean,
phenomenal writer for MLB.com, covering the Indians. And, I love having Mandy on. She brings some really good insight with the tribe. We'll take a timeout, take some phone calls, 330-886-0813. Back in a bit. You're listening to a Monday edition of Running Point on YSNLive.com.
They say American craftsmanship is making a comeback. Of course, at Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods, it never went away.
People are floored by Baird Brothers' authentic hardwood floors. They stare at our stairs and adore our doors. Baird Brothers reflects 3 generations of family craftsmanship. Visit our huge in-stock selection in person or at BairdBrothers.com.
Baird Brothers, our family's heritage, your family's home.
Planning a project around your home or rental property? Trust the electrical service to the local experts with 62 years of serving the Mahoning Valley. Joe Dickey Electric is your local go-to source for responsive, reliable residential electrical work. From everyday maintenance and repairs to new installations, electrical upgrades, and safety inspections, no job is too big or too small. Call Joe Dickey Electric today, 800-549-3976, or visit DickeyElectric.com. That's DickeyElectric.com.
Myers Family Insurance knows the importance of a great team.
Our team continues to grow to help you with your Medicare and retirement needs.
The annual election period is here, so it's all hands on deck to make sure your plans still meet your needs for 2020.
Call us today.
It's a Monday edition of Running Point on YSNLive.com. Ron Potesta with you alongside Anthony Hartwig. Rich asked the question, the best expansion players from the 60s. The Houston Colt 45s had a guy by the name of Joe Morgan and Rusty Staub. So there's 2 guys.
Houston Colt 45.
Yeah, the Colt 45s. The New York Mets had a guy named Nolan Ryan, Tom Seaver.
Yep.
So there's 4 pretty promising players if we're going to go into that direction. So. San Diego, like I said, Nate Colbert is probably their best player from the expansion years. Montreal, Montreal didn't have a whole lot of talent, one way or the other. Let me see, who else was an expansion team?
The Royals,
Kansas City. Well, who was a good expansion guy from the Royals? Splittorff seems to me he was part of the Kansas City's expansion process. Maybe I'm off for a couple of years.
It's going way past my prime.
Yeah,
I mean,
I want to say he was either a young kid just getting into the majors or. This was a couple of years after their expansion years. I want to say Splittorff was one of those guys. Amos Otis was traded Kansas City, and I think he was in the Phillies organization before he was in Kansas City, so he wouldn't be in there. George Brett, that was well after the expansion.
He was in the minor leagues in 1975.
Yeah. Yeah, so the Royals came into play in 69, didn't they? Was it 69 or 70? It had to have been 69. Well, yeah. I know San Diego and Montreal were in 69. The Houston Colt 45s, the New York Mets, they were
Mets
in the
were
60s.
62?
Yeah, the Mets were 62 because they had that god-awful year in 62, which
it only took them 7 years to win a World Series.
There you go. Yeah.
Cleon Jones is on that team.
Yep.
He was a pretty good player.
Not bad. Not too shabby.
I think he's more famous for the shoe polish incident than he is for.
Yeah. Don Clendenin was one of those teams or one of those players from the expansion. Nolan Ryan, I think, was in the minor leagues when they were first when the team was in the expansion years, but he and Tom Seaver were in the Mets organization together, which that's a frightening thought to have those two guys in your starting rotation. Good God, that's a frightening thought. We're going to have to do some investigating on that one. But Joe Morgan and Rusty Staub were two guys in the Houston expansion. And Jimmy Wynn is another guy that was very much a part of the Houston Colt 45s. The toy cannon was a solid player. So those three guys, Ryan, Seaver, you field a pretty solid team from the expansion kids.
And Rich talked about the speed of the old days. I remember the Royals. The whole adage about Willie Wilson was he could turn the lights off and be in bed before the light went off. Like hit the switch and then be in bed before the light went off.
And you look at that era of baseball in the late 70s and early 80s, and guys that were stealing 90, 100, 110 on a year. And you look at the game now today, where the leader might have 50 steals, maybe on a good year north of 50, but nowhere near Omar Moreno in the late 70s. I think he had 85 or 90 steals in a season. Miguel Delaney had a crap load of steals for the Indians.
That goes along with pitchers being faster to the plate, catchers having better arms.
Sure.
And then you also go with the change of the offense and the more power. You don't want to take the bat out of a power hitter's hands by trying to run and steal the base. So there are a lot of things that kind of contribute to the lower steal numbers. It's not just one thing.
Yeah, no, it's a small ball was stolen base was involved in small ball. Let's go to Champ. Champ, you're on YSNLive.com. What's up, brother?
Hey, how you guys doing? Continue on with the expansion talk of the 60s. Interesting because when you talk about Nate Colbert, his claim to fame is he had 5 home runs in a doubleheader.
Yep.
And he's only one of 2 baseball players to do that. The other was Stan Musial. And ironically, when Nate Colbert was 9 years old, at that doubleheader, that Stan Musial had 5 home runs in a doubleheader.
Nice. All right. That's an interesting statistic.
Yes. Remember the Seattle Pilots?
Okay.
They were only in the league for 1 year, and they actually played in a stadium called Sick Stadium, and they really didn't have a lot of. I think the Tiger. I forget who it was that was the manager of that team, but I think he went to be the manager of the Tigers later on. But the only great trivia question I have with that is there's one player that played for both the Seattle Pilots and the Seattle Mariners, and his name was Diego Segui.
Okay.
And but that team only lasted 1 year. I think that the Milwaukee Brewers became
yes.
So that was, but they were an expansion team in Milwaukee, and I can't really think of how many ball players out of that expansion team came to be famous.
Yeah, because the Milwaukee Braves went to Atlanta, and Seattle was a 1 year one hit wonder, and Milwaukee needed a Major League Baseball team again, and the Pilots went to Milwaukee, and then the Senators had a 2-part thing where the first Washington Senators group went to Minnesota, and then the second one went to Texas.
Right. Interesting. The Houston Colt 45s, which we had, had some players from that. They actually, September of 27th of 1963, fielded the Major League's first ever all-rookie lineup.
Wow.
And that's where actually the catcher was Jerry Grody, the Detroit Cannon, Billy Wynn was, and also Joe Morgan. But interesting that the guy that played right field, his name was Aaron Porter. And what didn't really have that great of a professional baseball career. I don't think it lasted more than a couple weeks. But his sisters were claimed to fame because he was the brother of the Pointer Sisters, the famous music group.
Oh,
Those
there
were
you
his
go.
sisters.
Okay.
And he played a very short time. But they decided to do that in a doubleheader to play an all-rookie lineup, and that was never done before in Major League history. I don't think it's been done since. And they obviously changed the name of the team to the Astros soon after that because Colt 45s wasn't going to get it at that period of time, basically.
And it would in 1971, September 1, 1971, the Pirates put a team together of all African Americans and Latin Americans, no white guys in the starting lineup. So, it's interesting that. I don't think you've seen that lineup since, and I don't think you've seen an all-rookie lineup since.
No, you haven't. But, back talking about if the Indians have to change their nickname or the name of the team, I know there's a lot of talk. They're trying to kind of put in something that has something to do with Cleveland history. I know the Rockefellers was mentioned. I don't know if I want that, the Cleveland Rockefellers. But, maybe they just go back and name it after something that they could, use as a mascot. Maybe they name it after an animal. I mean, do we have to? I mean, I don't really see anything that really stands out in the Cleveland history that would fit as a baseball team nickname.
They used to be the Spiders.
But how about the Coyotes? At least it's Cleveland Coyotes. It sounds like, and we're getting a lot of coyotes around in our neighborhood lately, believe it or not. But maybe they just go with an animal name that no one else has, and they can build off of that with the mascot and maybe use it as kind of a team theme, so to speak, because there are a lot of mascots, and guess what? Those will be forever protected, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, you can go into that direction, I suppose. The more I hear about the Spiders, I'm not that keen on that. Cleveland Rocks, I think would be awesome because again you got the song now. Ian Hunter is the guy that you need to, he would ultimately be making a crap ton of money because it's that song that would be played after every Cleveland victory. So the Cleveland Rockers, which would be the rebirth of the WNBA short-lived franchise, but in honor of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, even though it's not the Rock and Roll City, Memphis is, but that's neither here nor there. It's the Cleveland Rockers, I think, would be cool. I think if you were to go with the prominent Indian group and just name the team after the prominent Indian group that was in Cleveland during the time before Ohio became a state and Ohio was predominantly Native American land. If you wanted to go in that direction, you could do that. Like Florida State has the Seminoles. They have given money to Seminole Nation, and the Seminoles love the partnership. I don't know what the Blackhawks in the city of Chicago do. I got to believe that the hockey team has done the same kind of a deal with the Blackhawk Nation. Honestly, the Cherokee. The Cleveland Cherokee, but I don't know if the Cherokee tribe was in Cleveland per se, or in Ohio for that matter.
Ron, you may know this, but what was the reason or the motivation behind the naming of both the Cavaliers and the Cleveland Barons? What was the reason they chose those two names?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I have no idea, but the Cavaliers, I think it's a fantastic. The old school logo was the young man that has the sword in his hand and his knees are bent. I mean, that's a fantastic logo. unfortunately they got rid of that when they got rid of the real cool looking colors in the 70s, and they had that nice Cavaliers uniform that I personally think they should have never gone away from. But and the Barons, again, I don't know.
Be curious to see how they came up with those nicknames, because I got to tell you, until I hear a better idea, I'm leaning towards an animal, because I'm listening to a lot. I even try to research myself, trying to find something that you could use, But it's like it's interesting, because I thought I read somewhere where there's several major league teams that are named after socks. The color socks, obviously the Red Sox and the White Sox, and the Tigers are actually in terms of their, I don't know, their socks had something to do with what they were earlier called early. But as you know, these I think it was the Cubs, the Chicago Cubs, that had the most nicknames of any major league team. Because if you go back way in the early 1900s, they were referred to so many different things, as you know. They changed nicknames like we changed socks a lot of times back in those days. But it'll be interesting, because now you haven't heard what the Redskins are going to be called now. I think
they haven't. The only thing the Redskins have said is we're not going to be the Redskins anymore. They haven't come out with a name yet.
Right. Okay. Because I keep reading where it's going to that Rivera, the coach, and Daniel Snyder, the owner, they're going to determine this. Those two guys.
Who knows? I mean, the Warriors have been bandied about. Red Bulls or Red Wolves have been bandied about as well.
It's a home run. Just call them the Washington Generals, and it's a great thing for the capital of the country.
It's kind of a dual meaning too, because the Washington Generals, like the Washington Redskins, suck and they lose all the time. So that's I mean, and the Dallas Cowboys and the rest of the NFC East would be the Harlem Globetrotters, and they'd rarely beat anyone like the Washington Generals. So there you go.
I forgot the Washington Generals were
the Washington Monuments would be a cool name.
But someone will tear that down eventually. But it's funny. If they would call themselves the Washington Generals, I bet you the Cowboys, because of the rivalry, would change their name to the Globetrotters.
What about the captains, Washington captains, or admirals, or a military class that kind of rolls off the tongue? Admirals.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. It's up to those two guys. Who knows what they're gonna. Maybe Snyder will name after himself.
I want to go off the rails here and pay homage to the last time they were good, which was in the early '91, in the early '90s. The Washington Hogs. Yeah, the Hogs. Call them the Hogs. There you go.
The Red Razorbacks.
No, call them the Hogs, because in Washington there's a lot of pork in politics, with all the bills that they have with both parties wanting to cram as much crap in their bills. So, call them the Hogs, and it's dual meaning.
Washington Hogs.
Yeah. Well, whatever. I don't think it matters to most of us. As long as they play football, that's all we're concerned about.
Yeah, there you go. Hopefully we get a football season.
Call yourself the Sissy Nannies for all I care about. Just play football.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, gentlemen. Nice talking to you. Good show today. Thanks.
I appreciate it. All right, 330-886-0813. Cleveland Steamers would be good.
I mean, what if they have these discussions with Native Americans, and they come out and they say, the Native Americans say, we don't like the word Indians because it's not correct. We're not from India, but we're okay with the tribe. Would you be okay with the Cleveland tribe?
I've said this all along.
They already call them the tribe.
Yeah, we all call them the tribe anyway, so why not?
And it stays, it doesn't completely change the whole idea of their mascot.
Yeah.
And it's a lot more correct, I guess you would say.
Now, the whole issue with that is you wouldn't make a whole lot of money on the marketing. And you want to go into the marketing aspect of it.
Anyway.
Well, yeah, but I mean the gear and whatnot. I think you have to go completely off the rails. All right, let's get back at it. You're on the YSNLive.com. What's up?
Danger of being reported AWOL. You hear me, son?
AWOL. Really? Who is this?
Christ on a stick. Clean the potatoes out of your ears, Kowalski. You're not fooling me.
No, you're not fooling me.
Ass back to base.
Okay. Aye, sir. We will do that momentarily. Thank you very much, sir. Have a great day. All righty. Double time it back to the barracks. Ha.
Meanwhile, in the Hall of Justice.
Can you imagine Myron Cope as a drill sergeant? I don't like to speak ill of the dead, and I loved Myron Cope. Could you imagine him as a drill sergeant? Hi, you're double, you're private. Go over to the base. Double time it. Ha. 330-886-0813. Your commanding officer hearing that's an order.
Chocolate.
You won't be wearing any brown stuff. That stuff is disgusting. Well, that's a cross between Myron Cope and who's the guy that yelled an awful lot? Gilbert Gottfried.
Oh.
Yeah.
What are you guys doing? I can't.
What's going on here with all this stuff?
You gotta squint while you're doing it though,
because he's got the squinting thing going on.
Gilbert Gottfried, man.
Gilbert Gottfried and Myron Cope. If you can imagine a person that sounds like that, that would be fun to listen to.
That'd be like a freight train going across your head with dragging Richard Simmons.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh,
yeah.
That's how annoying it would be.
Oh Lord.
Remember Richard Simmons, man? That guy had a very unique.
He was interesting.
Sound.
Yeah, he was interesting.
He had a SportsCenter commercial too, which I thought was hilarious.
All right. Best SportsCenter commercial.
There's so many. I like the one where they bring the kid up too early, and he's on the sports anchor. And
Oh yeah.
Jimmy Keys, I could hit him. Did you watch the game last night? He sucked. And then Bob Lee's like, bottom line, he just came up too early.
Y2K.
Y2K
is
the
still
classic.
my favorite.
And then I like the simple ones. I told you, I don't know if we did it on air, but the one with LT looking at the mailroom.
Oh, yeah.
And he can't see through his visor.
Exactly.
It's so simple.
Yeah.
But it's hilarious.
Yeah, that one's good.
And I like the big red looking at the men's and women's bathrooms. And the anchor just comes up to it and says, just go use the woods out back. Because he's not a man. He's not like, what is it? You know?
Exactly. Dwayne Wade trying to make his own highlights.
Right.
Yeah.
The Scott Van Pelt with who was he with? Phillips from the Phillies. Anyway, they're watching the sports in their back, and Scott Van Pelt sitting like this.
Yeah.
What bothers me here is your posture, and then like he's standing up, so his face is cut off. I'm embarrassed.
330-886.
Now that I think of it, the one where I don't remember what baseball player it is, but he's holding the bat and he's talking to the anchors about how they make a bat, and they cut it off. They're cutting the wood. They're cutting and the Stanford Cardinal is sitting like on the table next to him, and he just faints.
Good stuff. Even though I can't stand Clemens, the one where he was copying the letter K, he goes, "I'm going to be here for a while."
Right. The Megatron one where he turns into a vending machine because he's avoiding Stuart Scott.
Yeah.
Oh, it's classic.
Not bad.
Not bad.
All right, 330-886-0813. We had Mandy Bell on, and I'm still angry. I'm still disappointed that we didn't have a season on July the 4th, which they should have done. Major League Baseball dropped the ball on this. Okay, I'm going to be guilty on this. I'm going to be a fan.
You're excited.
And
as soon as that schedule came out, you got excited.
God, I hate admitting this. But I looked at it and I was like, well, okay, the Indians should be in good shape because it's 60 games. You're playing against the National League Central. The Cardinals are going to be good. Reds could be good. The Cubs could be good.
Yeah, the Cardinals and the Milwaukee are the only two teams that are really they're going to be good.
I don't even know if I know Milwaukee's going to be good. They're more or less in the could be good range. I think that St. Louis is the best team in that division.
Best team in the division, but I think Milwaukee is going to be a good team.
And we'll see what happens there. And Again, we thought it was going to be 4 games each of the Central Division teams. That's not the case. You're going to play the Cardinals and they're going to play the Cardinals and the Brewers 3 times, the Reds and the Cubs 4 times, and they get the Pirates 6 times, which is good news for the Indians because the Pirates are going to struggle this year, unfortunately.
And they probably did that because Pittsburgh's the closest to them. So
Absolutely.
They said, let's play them the most.
Absolutely.
And honestly, 60 games, I think you throw records from last year and all that out the window. I mean, you don't even know who's going to be good. It doesn't there's no way to really very wellly predict the way the season is going to go because we don't know how these teams are going to handle 60 games.
Well, and the other thing is...
It's complete chaos.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing is, okay, I'm not going to say gloom and doom if you lose 3 out of 4 in a series, but those series...
If you do it against Kansas City and Detroit and you lose 4 out of 6 of those games, uh-oh.
Well, look, I mean... You can't afford to do that an awful lot of times because a 60-game schedule, these games are going to have a lot more meaning than over a 162-game season. This is no longer a marathon. Yeah, now we're basically sprinting.
You play 3 series and you're already 1/6 of the way done with the season. You played 10 games and all of a sudden, like that, if you're in a hole.
Yeah, if you're 3-7 after 10 games, now you got to be 7-3 just to get back to 500. And then the thing is, if you get back to 500, you're a third of the way through the season.
Right.
So you can't afford to be 3-7 in any way, shape, or form over a 10-game stretch. Because if you are, there's a pretty good chance you're not getting out of that hole. Like I said, especially if you start the season 3-7. Now, God forbid that the Indians or the Pirates were to start the season at 3-7. But if you do, you got to be 7-3 the next 10 games. And this is super important because let's say you're 5-5 in the next 10 games. Okay, now you're 8-12 and you're a third of the way through the season. You're going to have to do better than 12-8 over the next 20 games. If you want to be in the pennant race, or if you want to be in wild card contention, because 20-20 through 40 games, unless you're planning on going 17-3 the final third of the season, 20-20 is not going to get you anywhere.
It's going to be fun because, like we said, every team starting in the same spot, and who's going to handle it better. That's why I will give props to whoever wins the World Series this year. I'm not going to put you didn't really win. No, you handled the 60-game season better than anybody else.
It's a completely different season.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not, and as we said, this is not a marathon mentality now. Now we've got a completely different mentality. And yeah, all records go out the window, but it's disconcerting if you're an Indians fan. In Tito Francona's era as the manager of the Cleveland Indians, they haven't exactly played good baseball over 60 games.
No, but they finished well.
They finished well, exactly. And the guy that I think everyone needs to watch for, if you're an Indians fan, Cesar Hernandez is going to be a really good player for the Indians this year. Normally, he's a guy that starts out very fast and then peters out after game 100. The body wears down and his numbers go way, way, way down. It's just a 60-game season. Cesar Hernandez should be a solid baseball player, much better defensively than what we're used to at second base.
You flip it, and Jose Ramirez is traditionally a guy that doesn't get off to a good start. So if he starts to see, he doesn't have 40 games to get out of 100, batting 100 old. So
yeah, guys are going to have to be in midseason form from the get-go.
Last season, Jose Ramirez was struggling in the first gap of the season.
Oh my God, yes,
like really bad.
Like the first third of the season, close to half of the season, he was awful, and then he turned it on. Mm-hmm. Post All-Star break, he turned it on, but.
Turn on right away now.
Yeah, you 60 games, you better be turning this on really, really quick. Now, I guess the $1 million question, and obviously there's a chance that we could see someone flirting with 400 because it's 60 games. Do you really give this person
I think if we
just due?
If I had to pick a player, if I had to pick one player that I think has a good chance, Mookie Betts might get up there in the 400s because he's had a couple of seasons in a row where he's been in the 300s for the season. He's a dang good average hitter. I think Mookie Betts might get to 400 if I had to pick a player that has a chance.
Dodger Stadium is a huge ballpark.
Yeah.
And if he's a gap hitter into
Which
the
he
alleys,
is.
which he is, he should be able to have a pretty nice season. No, plus, he's going to get protected pretty well because the Dodgers have a decent offense. I think the Dodgers are probably the class of the National League. I have no clue what to expect in the American League, and I'll even make this prediction
It's the
right now. I'm not 100% sure about that. I'm going to make this prediction, and I am going to preface this by saying if Tampa Bay starts the season completely healthy, they win this division. I don't think the Yankees win the American League East.
Really?
I think Tampa Bay wins the AL East.
That's going to be your bold. That's a bold prediction.
That's my bold prediction.
All right.
If Tampa Bay starts the season healthy, I think they win the East. Because New York has no Severino. He's out for the rest of the year. Early on, the Japanese pitcher got smoked in the head with a line drive off the bat of Giancarlo Stanton. I think he's going to be okay to start the season, but
is it Matsumi?
yeah,
Is that his name?
yeah, that was a really ugly scenario, and he didn't have the L screen, which dude, put the L screen on. You don't, I understand, you want to pitch and you want to get the whole thing down. I mean, do that the last week and a half of the summer camp. When you're first starting out, you put the L screen up. Who knows what's going to happen?
Especially if you're looking at Carlos Stanton.
Oh, God. The ball just came rocketing off that bat. I mean, he had no shot. It was ugly. It was really ugly. Hopefully he's okay, but no, I think if Tampa Bay is healthy, I think the Tampa Bay Rays could steal that division from the Yankees. I really do. I mean, we'll see what happens. It's going to be a fascinating year, and again, it's completely different than what we've ever seen.
They definitely have the benefit of having the worst team in baseball in their division with the Orioles. I think they're the worst team in baseball.
Well, if they're not, they're in the top 3 or 4. So
I mean, you look at they have nothing to work with right now.
They got a lot of kids.
I mean,
yeah, and
I think
Toronto's going to be a 500, maybe a little below 500 type of team. Boston isn't going to be all that good this year either. I think the Red Sox are a team that's probably.
But they do have to play the NL East.
Yeah, that's true.
Is a gauntlet.
That's true. I mean, the Braves are going to be good. The Nationals are going to be good. The Mets are going to be a fun team to watch. The Phillies could be a fun team to watch. And don't sleep on the Marlins, even though they're probably the worst team in that division. They have a pretty decent amount of talent in that organization. It's just they're going to be overmatched this year. But in the next couple of years, I think the Marlins are going to be a pretty decent team. So... I think Tampa Bay and New York is that's the 2-horse race in the AL East, and any one of the 4 teams that I mentioned, Washington, Atlanta, New York, Philadelphia, they can win the National League East.
Right. I would pick Atlanta, but that's just an early pick right now to win the East. But
well, I mean, do we want to go next Friday? We put on our prognosticating hats and go from there.
Let's do it.
All right.
You want to put something on that Indians Royals series?
No,
No,
no.
You don't want to put
I already got my barbecue sauce, so it's all good. Don't want to do anything else.
All right.
Yeah, we're going to pass on that. Yeah, we're going to pass on that. I was really interested that Bobby Bradley is with the minor league guys. And it kind of makes sense because, again, Santana, Reyes.
There's really no place for him.
There's no place, exactly. And it's unfortunate. And moving forward, I mean, if the Indians decide, okay, we're going to try to get him in play in the outfield, well, we have that in Domingo Santana, and we have that with Franmil Reyes. I have the strange feeling that Bobby Bradley could be someone that the Indians trade in the offseason, as much as I would not want to see it, because I think Bobby Bradley has a tremendous future. But, depending on how long they want to keep Santana, Carlos.
You have to think, though, he's one of the first guys that's going to be called on if someone gets a coronavirus.
Oh, my God, absolutely.
And they're on the DL for, what, is it 10 days?
10 days, 2 weeks, whatever.
So you're out for 10 days. He might be one of the first people called up.
I would think so.
And then if he calls up and he's on fire, do you really put him back down?
You can't.
Right? So
I mean, if he's on fire and he's a left-handed batter, I mean, you can't. That's but man, that's a great scenario to have. With
not great because you don't want anyone getting coronavirus.
No, but it's nice to know you've got a really potentially fantastic stick that can replace, God forbid, a Santana, Carlos Santana, Domingo Santana, Franmil Reyes.
They're going to have a safety net. Really
No doubt.
A couple of really good safety nets, really. I mean, they have some young pitching they can go to, too, if someone goes down with the virus.
Yeah.
So.
And the obligatory note for MLB.com, for the love of God and everything that's holy, there's going to be no fans in the stands. Please drop the blackout. Do everyone a favor. Gain some fans. Just drop the blackout for this year, because it's absurd that anyone is even thinking about having a blackout when there's not going to be any fans in the stands. It's absurd to even think about having a blackout on your service. Then again, Major League Baseball doesn't know their head from their hole in the ground. By the way,
they have not yet reduced the monthly price for MLB.TV. It's still $25 a month.
Unbelievable.
So I doubt you're going to get the blackouts out.
Ugh, another misstep. We're going to take a final timeout and be back to wrap it up. It's a Monday edition of Running Point on YSNLive.com.
Hey, my Ohio friends, it's Mike Ditka, and I know great talent and heart when I see it. I can tell you from firsthand experience, there are average real estate agents, then there are true champions. Kelly Warren is one of those champions, and you have her right there in your own backyard. Kelly outmarkets and outsells every agent in the Mahoning Valley. If Kelly can't sell your home at a price and deadline you agree to, Kelly will buy it. Get your home sold. Call Kelly Warren today at 717-2689 or go online to kellysoda.com and start packing.
You can feel it. Baird Brothers' traditional craftsmanship. You can see it. Baird Brothers' timeless style. And you can afford it. And find everything at BairdBrothers.com. Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods is real hardwood, yet beautifully affordable. Floors, moldings, interior doors, bar rails, and stair parts. All within your means and without a care. Start at BairdBrothers.com. You have made it. Your home.
Teams work hard and give it all they've got. Well, so does ours, because 21 Sports and YSN give you extra effort when covering local sports. 21 Sports and YSN, winning coverage of our Valley's teams.
Back to close up shop on a Monday edition of Running Point. Anthony Hardwig back home from his week-long trip to Kansas City. And again, many, many thanks. He got my Gates barbecue sauce, extra hot, which in reality really isn't extra hot, but it does have some zippity doo-dah to it. That's some good zing to the extra hot.
Yeah, their extra hot is everybody else's hot because they don't have a hot flavor. They just have mild. They have sweetened something, sweetened honey or whatever, and then they have extra hot. So.
Yeah, I got the mild barbecue sauce, which a little more liquid in the mild barbecue sauce. I've noticed that. And then the hot, or the very hot, extra hot, has a little more texture to it. So, but good barbecue sauce nonetheless. Oh my goodness. I look forward to putting that on chicken, putting that on ribs, and yeah, look forward to that big time.
Making me hungry.
Oh man, I'm telling you, I got to make a venture over to Morgan's Oil over in a 5-iron from the PA border and get some chicken so I can put my
try it out.
Put my sauce on there and go from there. That's a good get right there. I actually may just be headed over there after work today. Get my chicken and slam some barbecue sauce on the chicken.
By golly, I've talked myself into it.
You're damn right I have. Abso-friggin-lutely. All right, that'll do it for the show. We will be back on Wednesday. Brian Tolnar will be our guest. Hopefully our pick actually makes the cut this week. Justin Rose was awful. So was Jason Kokrak.
Matsui went. Not Matsui. That's the pitcher. Matsuyama finished, I think, 24th.
Yeah.
In the tournament that I picked before I left. So not my best pick, but.
I mean, at least your guy made it through the cut.
Right.
Jason Kokrak, third consecutive missed cut.
But he got an eagle.
He did get a hole in one. Yeah.
So he
did get a hole in one. Justin Rose was worse than Jason Kokrak, so hopefully Brian Tolnar and I have better options and better prediction skills.
I guess I'll be carrying the group again.
Oh, look at you. Yeah, attaboy. So we'll talk with Brian Tolnar. Fingers crossed we'll get John Parado on. We'll talk some Bucko baseball with John Parado.
As always, we're trying to have a Class B coach on.
Yeah, we got our B-League spotlight as we're closing in toward the end of the B-League season. Got to get that B-League spotlight in as well. All right, stick around. The Power Hour coming up next. Have a great rest of the Monday. We'll talk Wednesday.